Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending this evening's Traffic Safety Board meeting. Today is Wednesday, December 7th. Got that right? December 6th. December 6th. I'm moving ahead of myself. Today is Wednesday, December 6th. Thank you for attending the meeting. I'd first like to introduce the members of the board. I'm Eric Farage, Chairman, and we'll go around the room here.
Greg Dion, Vice Chair.
Kevin Cantwell, member.
Mark Storch, member.
Kristen Goss, member.
Maxwell Khan, member.
Mike Sukala, I'm your Amherst Town Board member and the liaison to the board.
Jennifer McNevich, member.
Dan Ryder, member.
Ken Smith, member.
Bill Prenover from the Building Department. Tom Boyd from the Planning Department.
Chris Schregel from Engineering Department, Traffic Safety Coordinator.
So before we go any further, we just need to make a quick announcement that should an emergency alarm sound in the building, the emergency exits are to my left, your right. Please leave the room, proceed to the front or rear of the building to exit the building. Our first order of business this evening is to review our minutes from the prior meeting. We actually had an issue last month and we did not have the other minutes. So we have two sets of minutes to go through this month. So Chris, do you want to do the October 1st?
Sure can.
So our first order of business is the October minutes. Are there any comments or corrections from any members here of the board? Waiting for Chris to open them. Should we have any comments, corrections, or changes? None being heard, is there a motion to approve?
Sure.
Motion from Kevin, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Greg. Any further comments? None being heard, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried 9-0. And then, Chris, we can move to the November meeting minutes. And I'll ask the board, are there any changes or modifications or comments to the minutes? None being heard, is there a motion to approve?
Sure.
Motion by Kevin, I will make a second.
Second.
Okay, we'll let Dan do the second.
Yep.
Any further comments? None being heard, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
One
Motion
abstention.
carried. What's that?
Abstention, I wasn't here.
Okay, so carried 8-0-1 with Ken abstaining. With that, before we move any further in tonight's agenda, just want to go over a couple rules for the meeting. First off, just want to let everyone know that this board is not a lawmaking authority. Members of this board are appointed by the town board as volunteers, and we serve in an advisory capacity to the town of Amherst. The liaisons are here to support and advise the board to have their respective departments act on recommendations made by this board that do not require legal action by the town board. Should the board make a recommendation that requires legal action, a motion will be made and voted on that will then be sent to Councilmember Zucala, who is here with us this evening, and that action will then go before the town board for any changes that need to occur legally. We'll go over all of that with you as we go through your agenda items. In order, as we close each agenda item, we will provide you with information. I already got that. In order to address concerns of those in the room, we do not go through the agenda in order. We will go through the items based on the order of the sign-in sheet. Once we go through those that are signed in, then we will then proceed through the agenda for all of the other agenda items. If you are here for an agenda item and we talk about it at the beginning, you're more than welcome to stay through the end of the meeting. We enjoy company. There are site plans on the agenda for tonight. We may have some people that are here for those. Those will be covered at the end of the meeting. As we work through the agenda, we'll first provide background information. Once that's concluded, we'll open it up for a public comment period. During the public comment period, those that have signed in will be provided 3 minutes to comment. When you come to the podium, please state your name and address. Be aware that the meeting is being live streamed and recorded. As you discuss your item, be aware that each member on this board has copies of all correspondence that you had with the town. That's what these packets of paper are for us. Therefore, no reason to report back to us anything you've already talked to the town about. Once you hit about 2 minutes, 30 seconds, Greg will ding his bell. And at 3 minutes, you'll receive a double bell to let you know your time is up. Once all the residents have had the opportunity to speak, we on the board here will then go through, have an open discussion. During the discussion, the board will not answer questions from those in the audience. So as you have your after the public comment period is closed. If necessary, the board may ask questions to those in the audience should more information or clarity be needed as part of the board's discussion. Therefore, if you have any questions you'd like the board to answer, please ask them during your 3-minute comment period. We'll do our best to make note of your questions and answer them if possible during the board discussion. A few topics that'll come up during tonight's evening that we should all be aware of. The board is required to follow the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, also known as the MUTCD. The MUTCD is a document issued by the federal government along with a New York State supplement. This document provides uniformity and consistency, allowing road users to know what to expect. This board cannot make recommendations that do not align with the MUTCD. Town of Amherst speed limit is 30 miles per hour. There are some situations for a school sign, school zones where that can be reduced. There is stuff that has been passed to reduce the speed to 25 miles per hour. However, that has not been passed in the town of Amherst, so that'll take legal action by the town before we can implement that. Also, per the MUTCD, this will come up multiple times, stop signs are traffic control devices. Their purpose is to control traffic at an intersection. Stop signs are not speed control devices. There are warrants that the MUTCD that need to be met for a stop sign to be installed. This board is aware that there are many unwarranted stop signs in the town that were put in place many years ago and before MUTCD guidance was issued. Installation and removal of a stop sign requires legal action. When it comes to stop signs, the only thing harder than installing a stop sign is removing one. Also, numerous studies have been conducted and determined that unwarranted stop signs make roads less safe, especially for pedestrians, mainly children, as the assumption is that cars will stop at stop signs. However, frequent users of the streets become accustomed to those cars being at the intersection with unwarranted stop signs and therefore do not stop. Others that do stop may become frustrated over having to stop for nobody. To make up what they believe is wasted time, they speed between unwarranted stop signs and increase rather than reduce speeds. Therefore, remember, stop signs are traffic control devices, not speed control devices, and this board will not waver from that guidance. Speed humps, and tables are not currently used in the town of Amherst. However, this board is in favor of their use. They will take further guidance and direction from the town in order to set guidance to install those. And we are working with a couple potential pilot projects to implement those to see if those can be taken. So we do take other suggestions if you have ideas while you're here this evening that we can continue to work on that project. So with that, we'll move forward with the meeting. And our first people signed in this item this evening are for agenda item B under old business, which is Brantwood and Kings intersection, which is a request for an all-way stop sign. And I will turn it over to Chris.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. So this item is familiar with you. It's been on the agenda for some time. It's been held asking for various information for the new members of the public that are here this evening. We're just going to briefly go over the old data, which really just consisted of mapping out the existing stop signs as well as the crosswalks as shown on your screen. We try to get an understanding of where the all-way stops are versus where the single stops are. And as you can tell, there are a multitude of all-way stops generally near the school where there are 4 legs to an intersection. When there are T intersections, they're generally, for the most part, signed as a stop sign on the bottom leg of that T, similar to how it is at the subject intersection at Kings and Brantwood. There is one that I want to point out that is a T intersection that is an all-way stop controlled. That's Keswick and Brantwood, just north of the subject intersection by 2 blocks. So in terms of the crosswalks, this board was instrumental in doing more crosswalks along with the highway department in the vicinity of those schools, even installing a mid-block crosswalk at Kings with a sign in the middle of the road there right in front of the middle school. So the board held this last month asking for a count. We conducted those counts. There was nothing shown too out of the ordinary in reference to speed, but we did want to show this evening the all-way stop warrant analysis. For the, as the chairman mentioned, there's a MUTCD, Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and that provides warrants to when an all-way stop should be signed and it requires 300 vehicles approaching the intersection on the major per hour for an 8-hour, the most highest volume 8-hour period. And at those same 8 hours, minimum volume for the minor road at 200. We are very shy of those numbers on this analysis. The highest it got was, I would say at 8 a.m. You had 93 approaching on Brantwood and 53 westbound on Kings. So none of the warrants are met. You can decrease those based on accidents. Those are neither met either. You can also decrease it if the 85th percentile speed is exceeding 40 miles per hour. That is not the case in this situation, so that was not met either. So this is the information you asked for. Here it is. We opted not to count pedestrians because we did not think it was going to yield much result given the current temperatures.
Thank you, Chris. With that, we will open it up to public comment, and our first person signed in this evening is Jim Mansour. Just let me know who's going first.
Gary Darvish.
Okay, thank you.
So Gary Darvish, I'm at 250 Brantwood, so I'm 3 houses from the corner where we're proposing to ask you to place a stop sign. I've lived there since 1987 when I first moved in. I mean, there were hardly any children at all in the neighborhood, but the neighborhood has changed, particularly in the last 5 years. You know, we see excessive speeds, people going rapidly around the corner. And so we feel this would be very helpful in terms of safety. There's a few items that I'd like to bring up. One is that the Amherst Central School District has a capital improvement project that was approved in December 2022. Phase 2 of that has to do with Amherst Middle School, and it's about renovating the parent pickup and drop-off areas at the middle school. So this is right on Kings, you know, right 1 block from where we're trying to place the stop sign. And the reasoning is to improve traffic flow and increase safety. So they obviously understand that there is an issue. I've been in contact with people at the middle school. Laura Bazinski, she's the school business administrator. We don't have anything official from them, but she's been in contact with the superintendent. They may be interested in, you know, supporting this, but I don't know what the consequences might be. It will take us a little bit more time to get that information. The other thing I want to bring up is it has to do with this MUTCD. You know, so the sections of that give you those counts that you've been referring to again and again have nothing to do with a school, right? So, I mean, do those counts apply when we're within 1 block of a school? I guess I think it's a room for judgment. So I'm sort of asking you to think about that and not just look at this raw data that could apply to anywhere in the town of Amherst. So I think those are the main points that I wanted to make. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'll let you guys decide who's going next. Just state your name as you come up.
Hi, my name is Peter Christoph. If you go back to that map, I live at 264 Brantwood. I live right at the corner. So when I moved into the house in 2019, I have 2 little kids, 1 4-year-old, 1 2-year-old, eventually going to go to that middle school. My son's bedroom window stares out the front lawn. Across the street from me is a good friend of mine who also has a new infant at home. His driveway is a meeting spot for a bunch of middle school, even high school kids. They meet there from the neighborhood and then walk to school. Walk to the middle school right down Kings. I still don't understand that this has been held for this long, that there is at least not a crosswalk at this intersection. I guess my point of view is I see it every morning. There are kids there. Whatever the statistics show, there are pedestrians, especially the before and after school hour, kids especially, that do cross that intersection. As for the car data, you know, you can count it however way you want, but if there is, and is there a, if you go back to that previous, is there an accident count?
Yeah, we did do one, and it either came up with a 1 or a 0. I can't recall from. Okay.
And when was that?
We typically look at the last 3 years. It's a three-year period.
Okay. So I'm sure it's been brought up here before. There was an accident in May.
I remember somebody brought that up.
Where it ended up in a neighbor's front lawn, hit 2 trees. It was later in the afternoon on a Friday or Saturday. I think it was a Friday. And I mean, if it was a little bit earlier, closer to school time, someone would have gotten hit, almost a guarantee. I'm right there in the corner. I was in the backyard. I heard it. I could picture it in my head. I thought for sure either a parked car or a person was hit. But it was pure timing that luckily no one did. So whatever data that you did gather, that's one thing, but please maybe use your own judgment based on that particular instance. Especially for me personally, I have 2 little kids at home, and you can see how close my house is to that intersection. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So specific to the data, I just wanted to touch on that. We use a state reporting system for accidents, and sometimes they lag behind, so the 3 years that they can gather is the most recent 3 years of data they have in that system. It could have very well ended shy of that May date. I certainly don't think that you're not telling the truth about that accident. It just probably didn't show up in my reporting that was available by the state.
I'm Ann Farmello, and I live at 259 Brantwood. Been there for 30 years. My children grew up there, and now my grandchildren aren't there. But anyway, I've seen the traffic up and down the street. I was the house that the car ended up in my yard, clipped the trees, speeding down the street. Fortunately, the person wasn't hurt, but it did do damage to 2 trees in the yard. I work at the high school also, and I see the kids leave school, go down Westmoreland, take a left onto Brantwood, and fly down Brantwood, and I know speeding, to end up down at the other end of the dead end of Brantwood. I followed one of the cars one time and saw that it was one of our little high school kids flying down the street. In the morning, we got cars coming the other way, coming down Brantwood, because there's no traffic, and they're flying down the street also to get down to Main Street. Brantwood also is a wider street, so it's easier for the cars to go up and down for the high schoolers to avoid hitting a car that's parked alongside the street. The middle schoolers congregate at the corner all times during the day. Well, during school, no. But in the evenings, during the summer, they go up and down the street. They congregate there. They're walking to and from, and with the new improvements going into the middle school, you're going to have more traffic. And Brantwood is an easy street to go bypassed and go speeding down the street. I'm out doing the yard work in the afternoon, and I'm out not in the street, but I'm raking up the leaves, and cars pass me like I'm like nothing. And it's like they whoosh past me, and I turn and I holler, slow down. I wish that you would at least hear our request. It's a simple request to put a stop sign, to at least control some of the traffic that goes up and down the beautiful street of Brantwood. Y'all may not have that problem, but that problem's getting worse on our street. I thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Mansour. This is my third time before this board. I'm just going to start by talking about the kids in our neighborhood. We have dozens of them. They range in age from babies, toddlers, all the way up to high school. The young families flock to our neighborhood because they can walk to school. And as we know, the middle school is right there on Kings. And the last few years, we've personally witnessed older folks move out, they've downsized, they sell their houses, and young folks move in. Young families with young kids. We've seen it happen over the last couple years. And as Peter mentioned, we see middle schoolers parading up and down our street every day to go to school. And for kids who live on the west side of Brantwood and further west than there is no way for them to cross Brantwood legally to walk to school. There's no crosswalk at Kings. They would have to go to Saratoga, or they'd have to go north to Westmoreland. There's no way for them to legally cross Brantwood at Kings. There's no stop signs. There's no crosswalks. So that's my first point. The next, I want to talk about the data. I'm asking the board to put the data aside for a minute and just focus on using independent judgment and focus on doing the right thing, because in my eyes, and I think the folks that are with me would agree, that there's no doubt that a stop sign would make this intersection safer, would make our neighborhood and our children safer. There's no doubt about it. Regardless of what the data says, I think those numbers are astronomical. 300 cars per hour for eight straight hours. I can't think of a street in our neighborhood that would meet that threshold. I don't agree with it. I don't know what that means or how that's important, but 300 cars per hour for 8 hours is almost absurd. So I'll say that about that. And the zero accidents, we know that that's wrong. I have the accident report. I can give the board a copy. So I'm asking the board to put the data aside and just use independent judgment and just make the neighborhood safer for our kids. That's all we're asking for. And this measure will do exactly that. So next, I know that this traffic board, your job is to insulate the full board from frivolous requests. This is not a frivolous request. It's based on merit. It's based on our observations. We've seen these things happen 500 feet from a school, this intersection. You can measure it on Google Maps. It's 500 feet, and it's the only intersection on Kings that does not have an all-way stop. It's the only one. So, and I have names and addresses of 50 or so neighbors that I've spoken to personally who support this. So you have the support from the neighborhood. So I wanted to point that out. And two of the people that are supporting live at that intersection. If I could just extend my time for 30 seconds, I promise I'll be quick. But two of the families that are at that intersection have appeared before this board. They don't have a problem with crosswalks maybe interfering with their driveway or having to be adjusted. They don't have a problem with that. They're here in support of this measure. So I wanted to bring that up, and also this to me is an easy win for this traffic board. You're not caving in by saying yes. You're not giving in. It's not a loss. This is a win. Take credit for it, and make our neighborhood safer. You can go home and say, I did the right thing tonight. I made this neighborhood safer, and that's what we're asking you to do. And Mr. Chairman, I have to believe you're not 100% bound by that data. First of all, I think there's problems with it, but second of all, I think as the chairman of this board, you have to have some discretion. You have to have the ability to use some independent judgment in deciding on these requests. And I'm urging you to use that tonight. Don't just rely on the data. You have the power to make our neighborhood safer, and I'm urging you to use it. Send this to the town board. Let the town board decide from there. That's all I have. Thank you for the extra time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience this evening to speak on this agenda item? None being heard or seen, we will close the public comment period and open it up to the board for additional discussion. Who wants to go first?
I mean, I'll just kind of reiterate what I said last time. Even putting the data aside, I don't believe that putting in an all-way stop at this particular intersection would make it safer. You have all these other intersections in the neighborhood that are T intersections that do not have an all-way stop. The only thing I would even consider would be putting him in all of these, essentially doing every single T intersection as an all-way stop, which is definitely not going to be approved by this board. Nor would I really want to do it, because then you'd have every single neighborhood in the town coming before us asking for that. So in my opinion, referring this to have the police do continued enforcement in this area would be a better option. I mean, the town just hired 17 new police officers. In my opinion, that would be a better course of action. I personally would not be in favor of installing a stop sign there.
I agree with Greg. I'm not in support of this. I think that the traffic volumes are just too low to warrant it. There's been voiced concern about speeding. We have the speed data, and as we know, the stop signs are not meant to control speeding. They're meant to control traffic.
Chris, I have one question before I give my response here. The school zone that was referenced, I think we've talked about this already. Based on the guidance of what's in there when we reference the book, there are limits as to what the school zone is. It has to be 200 feet from the school property line. That's the school zone, correct?
That's correct.
So this intersection is outside of the school zone.
Sounds like it's 500 feet from the school. I don't know where that's taken from. I can do it right now. It's based on the property line, so 200 stops just past Berryman.
Okay.
And there's some other criteria there as well. They specify that you should have a crossing guard within that school zone, as well as a crosswalk, which you do fit that.
So I'm just bringing that up because the comments that were referenced that it was near the school, but it is not, this intersection is not inside the school zone for the school. So I just want to make sure that that is specified and clear. I was directly asked by the residents to use independent judgment on this one to sway from the MUTCD. I agree with the other members on the board here that have spoke. The numbers here from the data that we have don't justify the installation of a stop sign. Based on the information that is available to this board and is out there about the placement of unwarranted stop signs, placing unwarranted stop signs has data that proves that it does not improve the safety of the neighborhood. Making a decision, an independent decision swaying from the information that is available to us, the data that's available for us of what we're asked to follow, we would have every resident in this room, every resident in this town that's asking for the placement of a stop sign, asking for something that to be changed for independent decision by this board. That's how we have a number of stop signs in this town that are unwarranted, things that exist here because of decisions that were made before there was guidance issued to set a national standard and a state standard as to how signs are placed for roads for uniformity. So using my independent judgment tells me that placing of a stop sign in this particular intersection based on the data that we have available to us is unwarranted and is not in the best interest of safety for the neighborhood at this time. So I would not be in favor of placing that stop sign. With that, I'll also add that you as residents to this town have the ability to go before the town board in a public comment, public expression period, continue to talk to Councilmember Zucala, to bypass this board and take it before the town board. However, I will also let it be known that you will need when that is done, if this were to go before the town board, as a resolution from this board asking for that stop sign to be installed, there would be notice that would go out to all of the residents of your neighborhood that are within a certain area of that neighborhood, a certain area of the intersection where that would be installed.
600 feet.
600 feet. So all of those residents within 600 feet of that intersection would be notified. From the agenda item being on our board, we are aware that there has been correspondence to the town from other residents in your neighborhood that are opposed to it. So our assumption is those residents would voice opposition further during that time frame to public comment, public expression before the town board and town council members, and it would then become their decision to either go against this board, move in favor of you, or those residents that are opposed to it in your neighborhood. So there is another vocal group in your neighborhood that's aware of this item and has expressed that they are opposed to it. So with that also, I say that I am not in favor of installation or passing a resolution to forward this to the town for the recommendation of the installation of the stop sign. Leave that up to other members of the board, or if we should do a quick vote here as to next steps. If any other board members have comments.
Can I ask you a question? Is there anything that we can recommend? Because obviously they've been back here many times. It's their neighborhood. They feel that there's a need. But is there anything that we can recommend?
We've made the recommendation that there will be referral to the police department for continued enforcement. As Assistant Vice Chairman stated, the town of Amherst has hired 17 new police officers. Hopefully that will provide additional resources on the street for traffic enforcement and speed enforcement. As those resources come on, hopefully they have more ability to do that. We've already passed along to slow speeds. Parking of cars in the streets, making people have to navigate cars will slow traffic. From the data that was presented by Chris, the speeds that are being presented to us actually do not show that high of a speed considering the posted speed limit in the town of 30 miles per hour. Leave it up to others if they have any other suggestions or feedback for the residents.
Just on the one thing he mentioned, in the summertime when you can, park your cars, literally coordinate with each other. Park your cars right across from each other. Creates a kind of pinch point where cars will have to slow down a little bit more. I know it's not like technically a solution we can implement, but it's something an action you can take. Obviously you have the other options that the chairman outlines, but just trying to give you some options here in terms of like other things you can attempt.
Well, I think that's obviously we're disappointed with where this might be headed, and since the room is relatively empty, I feel compelled to say something. Which intersections can meet the 300 vehicles per hour for 8 consecutive hours? Does any intersection in the Snyder area meet that threshold?
Yeah, none shown on the map do.
Seems like an excessive number, 300 per hour for 8 straight hours. I feel like Sheridan Drive doesn't even meet that.
So there's also additional guidance that's there that you don't need to put stop signs on residential streets and even T intersections. There are other parts of New York State. I have family that lives in the Albany area, a residential neighborhood like this in that area, there would be no stop signs at any of the intersections.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, that actually, you think that is counterproductive, but that actually makes the roads slower and safer because everybody in the neighborhood knows that nobody has a stop sign, nobody's going to stop. So everybody slows down at those intersections because you have no choice, because there is no traffic control device. And when traffic counts are low enough, that is actually the recommendation of how to reduce speeds and calm speeds in a residential neighborhood.
Well, sir,
So with,
I don't mean to interrupt you, but
with,
we live on this street, and we know that is not accurate.
so
We
with,
watch these cars zip down our street
so
like it's a speed.
the public comment period, unfortunately, on this matter has been closed.
Sir,
We have places that we would like to go tonight as well and other agenda items to discuss. We have residents that come before this board on multiple occasions with similar requests to yours. We have the same response. We work with the data that is available to us and the information that is available to us. The town has listened to you. You've been before this board for, you have been before this board. You have been before this board 3 times. The town has dedicated resource to put traffic counters there, to study it, to look at the information that is available. We have listened to your concerns. As I have expressed, you have the ability as a town resident to go before the town board, to continue to reach out to Council Member Zucala and continue to ask for this. However, at this point, I believe the board here, I will ask all members of this board, all in favor? Are we all in favor that we are not in, are we all in agreement that we are not in favor of an installation of a stop sign at this intersection? All in favor?
Sir, you're
Aye.
you're steamrolling.
All opposed?
By the way that you're addressing the board, you're steamrolling.
With that, this board is in agreement, passing 9-0, that we are not in favor of the installation of the stop sign. We just had the vote while you were talking over us. Can we have a roll? We will do a recall vote. Max, are you in favor?
Positives and negatives straight on that one. But
Are you, so the question is, are you in favor of installation of a stop sign, yes or no? No. Kristen?
I would have liked conformity to the neighborhood, but I would say yes.
No.
Kevin?
No.
Greg?
No.
No. Jennifer?
No.
No.
So with that, there's a vote 8-1.
That's all we asked.
So we originally had the vote. I thought we had a vote when I asked yeas and nays of 9-0. With that, the board has voted. We've provided direction to you. This item is closed. And just so the residents that are in the room are aware, there are members that are on this board that are appointed, and we have open seats on this board. We are looking for additional residents to participate on this board and listen to concerns. If you'd like to participate to help us make these decisions, you can reach out to Council Member Zucala, and that you have interest in filling this and listening to other resident
To pursue it.
consent
This is
for
how
other
you
residents
get a hold
that
of
have similar issues.
Oh.
With that, we will move to item number 1 on the agenda for Casey Road.
Thank you, Chairman. So Casey Road, a resident who's here this evening approached the town asking for something to be done related to the speeds on Casey. So you guys are very familiar with Casey in terms of what we've done, particularly in her section that she's requesting. We obtained a federal grant to make this area more pedestrian and bicycle friendly. That work was conducted around 2019. The count data, we were hoping for more of a reduction in speeds between the before and after. I am always honest with our results and our data, and we only saw a 1 mile reduction after that project. That said, the resident, among other residents on Casey, have often complained about the speeds. And the latest, I think, was like 40 miles per hour. I don't know if I've got it. Yeah, I do. Yeah, there we go. So this is really, we did it throughout the corridor, but specific to 440 Casey, which the resident lives, we have two counts flanking her. The count conducted west of the location had an 85th percentile speed of 35 in the eastbound. That's great. It is posted at 35. Unfortunately, the westbound is at 40, and the other count was at 42 and 43. Therefore, this resident asked what more can be done. As you do know, there is quite a bit of signage out on Casey Road. We are not able to place speed humps on Casey Road. We can always do traffic enforcement, but then she offered the suggestion of a radar feedback sign. So that is what is on the agenda, a request for a radar feedback sign. That is a sign, for those that are not familiar, that show that the speed limit is 35, and then passing motorists get a digital display identifying what their passing speed is. You have implemented this, made recommendations for the sign on Brompton Road, as well as on Park Club. Those installs are occurring now. The infrastructure is about halfway done. We've got the posts in. So I did provide you with the detail sheet specific to that. This is kind of the town standard. I will make mention that the town board recently authorized by resolution that the town engineer department pursue these signs on Westfield Road in lieu of the speed humps that we're all familiar with. We completed a design, and when we went out for underground marking, the residents started to inquire what was occurring, and they all came out in opposition of these signs. So that is not moving forward. We even reached out to other residents in the area saying, are you willing to have this device in your front yard? Nobody raised their hand and said yes. So we have since shelved that project, but there may be flexibility in doing it at other locations in the town. Quite frankly, I think they're best reserved in places like Casey and Brompton and Park Club, where they're more acting like a collector roadway instead of a residential. That said, I will turn it over to the board for additional discussion.
I will open it up to public comment. I believe we have a resident signed in. Ann Carvana, did you still want to speak? Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ann Caruana, and I live at 440 Casey. We've lived there since 1998. I think I was one other neighbor came when you had this beautiful project involved with sidewalks and so on and so forth. So I'm, engaged in my neighborhood. When we moved out there, it was more of a country road, and I think people actually went slower then because there were no sidewalks. People were kind of used to kids walking to school. So what I've been seeing now is a lot of kids are walking, they're riding their bikes, which is great. And there's a lot of posted signs, 35 miles an hour. I took note of that before I wrote my email, and I think people they ignore that 35. They're whipping down the street, 40, 45, 50. And what's really happening too now that we have not only the middle school and the high school, but we have the administrative building there. There's just a lot going on Casey Road now. So I realized trying to ask this speed limit to be lowered would be like a huge thing to ask. But I do also notice, I work in the village of Williamsville. I ride down Evans Mill, the Heim Road. So I'm seeing, those are good spots where it just lets people know, hey, slow down. Or there might be radon, you might get a ticket. Radar, rather. I'm in real estate, so I'm thinking of radar, gas. So I would like, I'm sure, like I said, changing the speed limit, that would be great, but I know that would be huge. It's a county road, so we're always sort of getting pushed off, we're the county, county is responsible. But I think just one of those speed, or whatever the proper name is, would really help. And you could put it right in front of my house. Just gets people aware. You're going too fast. There's schools up here, and I felt strong enough to write a few emails, go to the meeting when you created this whole project, and then follow up. So that's all I have to say about it.
Okay, thank you. Any other residents wishing to speak on this item this evening? None being heard, we will close the public comment and open it up to the board for discussion. I'll start. Chris, can you, on that, did you have Google Earth pulled up?
Yep.
Can you go to the street view?
Whereabouts?
Right in 440 is fine. I actually rode this evening around 5:30.
This is looking eastbound. Yeah, eastbound.
So if you move, that's looking eastbound. Can you look westbound? You actually move up one block right up to where that car is. Into that section right there. Those are all rear facing lots. And a nice open stretch there. I know you're not opposed to it in front of your neighborhood, in front of your house, but I think this would be a good sign to place in that area. I know we already talk about this area potentially having sign pollution based on everything that's been put in there. But this little stretch here, when I drove through there, the crosswalks aren't in that stretch. that are in the other end. They're rear facing. Unfortunately, the street view here is
Old.
old. But the crosswalks aren't in this stretch. It's all rear facing properties. That's all fenced in now, so my thought is that this would be a good area for it and wouldn't have much resident opposition of having a flashing sign in their front yard. So,
I'd say the observation that, well, it's one of those, cash center lines, it's a business.
that's old. That's gone. That's gone. So this whole stretch has been redone with bike lanes, center. You can see it in the overhead view, but the street view is not updated. So I just wanted to bring that up. I'm in favor of placement of the signs on the stretch of road. I just don't know the correct location, offering that up. I don't know if the rest of the board has similar feelings. And then if we do, if we have a recommended place to install it, or if we'd refer it to engineering department for feasibility based on where utilities and everything are that it can be installed. So open it up to everyone here for further discussion, in favor, opposed, and thoughts.
Chairman, I have a question for Chris.
Yep.
I'm curious, do we have this elsewhere in the town? How many locations?
We only have it at Brompton and Park Club.
Okay.
And that's not even fully constructed. There are, as the resident mentioned, other locations, but they're in the village. They're not our devices.
Right.
Well, yeah, that's
That's attached to the school
yeah,
zone
that's
sign.
she's right, in in a way. So those are school warning beacons, but they do provide feedback of this passing motorist signs. So that would be at Heim, and there are also ones at Middle School on Mill. Those are only active during the school months, and they're only active during the school hours of 7 to 4 or something like that. So, but yeah, we have those devices.
And the reason I'm asking is I'm trying to figure out what kind of precedent we may or may not be setting if we put this in, based on the posted speed limit of the road and the 85th percentile speeds and the differences between those. If this is the metric that we're going to be using to say that it is appropriate to put in this location,
Right.
if we have other streets that come up that have, slightly worse speeding, and we as a board think that it's not necessarily appropriate based on gut feel, I would much rather have some sort of something in place to guide us through this, if this is going to be one of our traffic calming measures in our toolbox.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got a couple thoughts. So Jennifer's right. We do not have a town criteria for the placement of radar feedback signs. The other locations that we've put these were decisions made based on public outcry or something happening. The Heim one was the crossing guards voiced a need for additional safety measures. Mill, the school reached out. Brompton, you guys know that story. They wanted some sort of traffic calming. This is what we came to. They did have 85th percentile speeds, around 40 at a 30 mile per hour posting. Park Club, you guys know the history on that as well. But no, we don't have criteria. We'd be happy to search for some sort of criteria out there that's already been established to look at, to guide us. I will mention lastly that Phase 2 of Casey Road is under construction east of Paradise. And, I'm just thinking while you guys are talking that maybe we could fit this type of device in that section as part of that federal aid project, should we have funding available remaining and unused. so it's not just one side, it's throughout the entire corridor.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but for something like this to be effective, it's similar to like the 35 mile an hour speed limit sign. If you see them everywhere, you start to tend to ignore them. So if this is going to be something that's effective, the less you use it, in my opinion, the more effective it might be.
So
Right.
So I agree with what Jennifer says regarding threshold to establish them. I think we also have the residents that were before us on our old agenda item a couple months ago, and the residents that spoke to us at that meeting about the crosswalks that were installed in that section that also referenced the speed in that section.
Prestonwood.
Prestonwood, and the fact that people are not stopping for people at the crosswalks. So based on the complete street design that was done there, the traffic counts and the speed, I think we have some criteria within this one. We don't have it formally written, but we have enough in this stretch on this road to use it. To use it here makes more sense to me than using it on Westfield, to be honest with you. Westfield being a residential street.
Yeah, I like that. It's like the missing tooth and a smile. If you put in this radar detector on this project, it kind of finishes it. Oh. And if that's documented in the minutes and that's something that we can refer back to if somebody comes up a year from now,
Yes.
I'm comfortable with that.
And I agree with Chris as well, that if there's funding for the second phase of the project for up to between Paradise and Transit, to have another one installed in that stretch so that there's 2 in that area, I would agree with that as well, if there's funding available within that project. So,
As you know, I sit on the
what's that?
As you know, I sit on the Williamsville Traffic Safety Committee, and we don't take traffic counts, but I think I can speak for our committee that everybody feels that speeds are reduced because of these radar detectors in the village, and we're trying for the last couple of years to put one on Cayuga Road, and hopefully that'll happen in 2024. The village considers them every time there's a speed issue. Let's talk about.
So I'm going to just throw a motion out here so we can move the agenda item along. I'll make the motion that we recommend that the town board utilize the approved funding for the Westfield Road signs that were abandoned and reallocate to Casey Road for placement as advised by the engineering department. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Jennifer. So with that, we'll open to further conversation. Any further comments? None being heard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 9-0.
So next steps, I'll have a discussion with Councilmember Zucala, perhaps the supervisor as well, informing him of the decision, a recommendation made tonight. It will take a design by the design engineer. Those locations, what we've learned from Westfield, we're going to have to get some public, we'll have to do some public outreach specific to where the signs are going, make sure everyone's on board prior to moving forward. We do have a current project. I don't know if this could fit in under that current project. We'll have to explore that, but we'll certainly get it moving.
Thank you. With that, we'll close item number 1. We have no other residents signed in this evening. I believe you gentlemen are here for site plans. Correct. So, well, if we keep on our current pace, hopefully we're there at 8:30. It's my goal tonight. So with that, we will move to item number 2 on the agenda. North Ivyhurst and Delwood Sattler Park, speed volume and count review. Chris, the stage is yours.
All right, so Ivyhurst Road Maybe even could have fallen under old business, to be perfectly honest. Was before you back in June. And at that time, it was held. There was consideration for potential traffic calming or reviewing if this could be, traffic calming could be deployed on Ivyhurst itself. At that time, we had 85th percentile speeds of 35 and 36. I do want to point out the volume in the northbound was around 350 as well as southbound was 350. So oddly enough, the resident reached out and I said this might be a good time now that school's in session to recount. And you will note in your package we did it twice. And why we did it twice is because, for one, the speeds dropped quite a bit from that last one. But more so, the actual volume in the northbound dropped all the way down to 61 from that 350. I thought there might be something wrong with the counters, so I asked them to do it again. In the southbound, it's 710. That's coming from Millersport. If you know that area, you do know that Westfield or Delwood? Delwood at the intersection of Millersport has a do not left restriction placed on it. So if you did want to cut through to Main Street, your first opportunity would be to utilize Ivyhurst. So maybe that is why there's such a difference in volume. But if you do want to look at that other count, pretty similar. We've got 127 this time going northbound. 85th percentile, again, pretty low at 30. And southbound jumps up to 834. A little bit of a higher 85th percentile of 34. So, maybe that's indicative of you not living in the neighborhood. Maybe you're driving through. You want to go quicker. So with that, I'll turn it over to you guys. The resident could not be here tonight, but she just wanted the data looked at and recommendation made.
So what's the ask here?
Make people slow down,
it's a-
traffic calming.
Speeding concern with an old request for traffic calming.
The counts are weird to me. I looked at those. But it's a head scratcher why the counts are so much different from June to November. What? Question, Chris, can you go back to June? What were the dates in June?
The June one? Okay.
That's what I'm curious. Is something happening to the count in June? You have Garnett Playground, Garnett Park there with a softball diamond, correct? So in June,
Yeah, we
June
weren't.
you would be softball season, I'm assuming, and we're saying the dates counted then were.
Traffic has been slow on Sheridan Drive all summer long. I think it's winding up now.
That is true as well.
Regardless of the enigma, it doesn't really.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
numbers Anyway.
regardless of the traffic count variances in the daily volume, the good news here is that we're actually seeing a lower speed.
I think this is
We made changes to the neighborhood regarding parking restrictions and other items, and with that, we're seeing a reduction in speed. I would call it favorable. And move to receive and file.
Yeah, I think where we want to be on this one.
Before we do that, can we just have a quick conversation about the parking restrictions in the area?
We can have any conversation you want as long as it's
I
on
just,
the streets.
I just want to take a look at that. Chris, I'm not sure if it's
This
going to
is
show.
probably not going to show.
I've quite honestly, I forgot what they are.
Yeah, just because I think and the street view is from like 2007, so it's super blurry. So I wasn't sure if there is a parking restriction on both sides of the street where the park is. If so, could we consider removing?
We
one of them?
changed that.
I thought we
I
did.
thought we did it on Delwood, not on Ivyhurst.
I thought we did it on both.
No, this was redone recently.
Ivy stop signs.
Yeah, I thought it was,
Huh. I don't have it, guys.
would anybody be opposed to?
Right there, Delwood.
I mean,
Removal.
So then it was just Delwood and not,
it's parking removal.
Right, because it was restricted on both sides, and we removed it on one side to allow them to park.
but we didn't do it on Ivyhurst, I think is what Greg's question is.
Right, it was Delwood, we have to touch that.
Well, there's a part one. So, well, I should have a map here. Just here are the current parking restrictions. Well, current back then. And looks like we removed it adjacent to Sattler.
So now they can park on both sides.
Yep.
And they can park on one side.
No, you can park on one. Well, yeah, because there isn't one.
There isn't a restriction on the east side.
Yeah. So it could and potentially pinch that traffic, make it go slower.
Thank you. That's what I would have probably suggested anyway, so that's great. Thank you for clarifying.
Already.
Yeah, thank you. Great job, us.
So with that, are we all in agreement to receive and file that we took corrective action and we are in
Yes.
favor, we achieved results, favorable results?
You can go home and know that you did something good tonight.
Don't say that out loud. So we'll receive and file, and we will move to item number 3, 195 Brompton Road, request for hidden driveway sign.
Oh, boy. So we had a resident reach out, our communications inside the package specific to, let me get my bearings here. Brompton Road, you guys are very familiar with Brompton. And this time, the resident is asking for a hidden driveway sign. And what's her address? You don't know?
195. No, that's where she wants the sign.
All right, good enough. So there is the escarpment that goes through the entire Amherst going east-west, and it does add some topography, some undulations throughout this whole Brompton. And what she's claiming is that northbound vehicles, she's having difficulty seeing those northbound vehicles when pulling out of her driveway. She also states that the road has been repaved several times, hasn't been milled, so therefore the elevation of the road is increasingly getting higher than her driveway. She is having difficulty exiting because of that hill. Therefore, she's asking for a hidden driveway sign. In review of the MUTCD, there is no such sign permitted for a hidden driveway. You might have seen these in other communities, but mind you, that's either old ways or communities just not abiding by that MUTCD. So there is a sign, as I provided in the package, that allows for a hill blocks view. The guidance on that is maybe used in advance of a crest vertical curve to advise road users to reduce speeds as they approach and traverse the hill, as only limited stopping distance is available. In one situation in the town, we have utilized this sign, and that is on Park Club, and that is essentially that same escarpment going east-west. And the reason we did this, it's a little bit of a different situation. Park Club in that area is not really residential. There is one house that sticks out, if I could find the thing.
Farmhouse.
Yep. So if you're familiar with Park Club, to the south, it's primarily, medical buildings. And then there's this utility corridor, old right-of-way bed, and you've got a singular house there, kind of by itself. So at that time, the Traffic Safety Board thought that merited that sign, and what's been provided in the package is a picture, oops, no, of that sign with a subpanel, hill blocks view with subpanel driveway. Again, a little bit different because this is not heavily residential like Brompton. And with that, I'll turn it over to the board.
Comments?
You don't want everyone to say,
Yeah,
well,
I think it's sign clutter.
yeah, exactly.
I think we just had a paid engineering study done along Brompton Road to review all of it and provide recommendations to improve the safety. And we're looking to already potentially add another sign on what has numerous driveways and numerous other hills. We put it up one spot on that street, we'll probably have 10 other spots where it would be justified. It's a hilly street with a lot of driveways.
Thank you for answering my question.
Can we take a ride down on that street?
With Street View?
Yeah, street view.
Field trip.
I want to know if any trees or anything are blocking the view.
Unfortunately, the one downfall of Street View is it doesn't show hills very good.
Yeah, and that camera's set up high on that car, so sometimes it really it's difficult to see the true perspective vertically.
That stretch is pretty flat in the beginning. That's kind of the first hill right there. I mean, there's bigger.
So there's that kind of the vertical curve that she's talking about.
Is that her? That's her house right there, right?
Does she have two driveways?
I don't think you were to her house yet.
That's it on the right. She's got.
So this is her house, and this is looking
That
southbound.
shows pretty good, that view right there with that van going up the hill. But I think if you continue on our field trip down the road, go further,
It's worse.
you have a bigger hill with driveways in it further down the road.
Backing out of her driveway or going head first? Because she's got room to turn around.
That's worse. There's even a sign. Yeah,
We've got that sign there, and we've got driveways in that area.
yeah. I think it would be inappropriate to put it. I think it would be inappropriate to put it in, and even if you were to put it in, it would be better where that truck hill sign is, if you were to do it at all.
355. Yeah, that's worse than the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd end up with 20 of these.
Yeah. I would be opposed to putting it in.
Ken, you done with field trip, or you want to keep going?
I'm
Okay.
done.
We're almost at the end.
That's the big hill.
Anytime.
This one is the greatest right
That's the
here.
greatest one. That's a fun one to hit in the middle of winter on an icy day.
Yeah.
Yeah. With a signal that changes pretty quick. Are there any members in favor of placement of the signage? She can do whatever she wants on her private property as long as it's not in the right of way. Anyone in favor? None being heard. All in favor of receive and file?
While I'm up there.
Aye. Motion carried 8-0 to receive and file. Next on the agenda, item number 4, Worley Drive, Garrison Road. This is a presentation from Chris, to my knowledge.
So we're at the intersection of Garrison, Worley. And Dan wanted me to mention just some jurisdictional differences here. So Worley Drive is a county highway. You'll see in the presentation that obviously it carries the most amount of traffic, being a minor arterial, I believe. Garrison is a village of Williamsville Road, and Lens Springs is the most minor, which is a very local residential road that only leads to this subdivision here. So
Is that town or village?
town.
Town. Okay.
I will mention that the side streets where the complaint is coming from are village. This did have an origin of coming from a village trustee, but the important part is that it is our signal. It being on a county intersection, we are responsible for its operation and maintenance. With that said, I'm going to let Tom drive, and I'll go up in front so I'm not talking at your backs.
I like my vision when it works.
So we had Myovision look at this a little bit more thoroughly. We do have smart signal at this location. So we hired Myovision just for 20 hours to use throughout for whatever need we had. This is our first time utilizing their staffing to look at a problem. They spent 4.5 hours on this one. Being that it is a confusing intersection, I really wanted them to look at it instead of us. Also, that gives us the ability to learn from them so we can duplicate and do similar things on our own internally. So next slide. So the complaint, as I kind of mentioned, came from the village of Williamsville, essentially the side streets of Columbia and I want to say Monroe is having difficulty exiting onto Worley because westbound traffic on Worley is queuing at that intersection and not allowing them to freely enter onto Worley because it's blocked. So we wanted to take a look to see how that's operating. Next slide. And looking at the ATSPMs, which is Automated Traffic Signal Performance Measures, utilizing the smart signals, we get counts every hour. So we just looked at a typical day, and obviously this is volume of this intersection is total volume is 24,000 entering vehicles. We have peaks like you normally see in the AM and PM. Zoom out a little bit. And what that lower left graph is showing, that large orange band, that is the primary vehicular movement in this section. So that would be westbound Worley, and would be northboundish Worley. So it would be lefts coming from westbound and then rights coming from northbound, as you would imagine. Next slide. So we can look at split failures. Those are the inability of vehicles to go through that intersection during a typical phase. And what you see, probably gonna have to zoom in, is the westbound lefts have a lot of red. That means they're split failures, and that means they are not going through in that cycle. So whenever you see blue, that is spare capacity. Whenever you see green, that is it working efficiently. So when I see green, we do not want to see a ton of red or a ton of blue. So next slide. This is that westbound left. And what we found out is, and a little bit of background, we had GBNRTC, the Greater Niagara Regional Traffic Council, help us with Worley to time that corridor as part of the Smart Signal project. And the timings came from GBNRTC, utilizing the typical traffic modeling that you might see using Synchro, and they came up with timing plans. The ability to then look at it after the fact using these automated traffic performance measures is really the power behind these smart signals to see if those timing plans are working. In this case, it is not. So what we have found out is that time of day plan, that's the TOD, changes at noon. So we are giving the morning 10 seconds to turn left. At 12 noon, that turns to 40 seconds, green max. So if you look on the right, that graph on the right shows that, you know, they're given 10 seconds, then it jumps up to 40 seconds. But what's really telling is you've got a ton of split failures. I don't have a pointer, but if you look at the left one, all the way up until noon, and then it drops dramatically at noon. And that's when that time of day plan changes from 10 seconds to 40. So it doesn't take a genius to say, okay, we're not giving enough time for the westbound lefts to clear. Next slide. So here are the volumes. If you want to look at AM versus PM, they're pretty comparable. Actually, it's a little bit less in the AM. You've got about 2,000 going left in that 3-hour period. Next slide. And in the PM, you've got about 2,200. Next slide. The northbound operation is operating, seems to be running pretty efficiently. The green max of 27 seconds maxes out pretty frequently in the AM peak. It is operating pretty efficiently based on the split trend diagram, but there's a caveat to that. Next slide. What is happening is with smart signals, there's no loops. You draw out these little boxes, and the camera picks up the actual vehicle. When you are looking south at the south legs, thank you, and whenever you see that green, that means that's been tripped. If you look in that box, there isn't a vehicle in there. So the northbound rights vehicles, you can see them, the AI is picking them up. It says vehicle 1. It draws a blue box around them. It is unnecessarily, accidentally tripping that northbound zone, therefore extending that green when it shouldn't be unnecessarily. So what's the solution? The after is to reduce that box. Next slide, please. And we've reduced it, and false calls issues mostly resolved. So that was an immediate fix done by MyoVision. That was an easy one, but you can tell sometimes you got to look at the data, figure out what's going on, and modify those zones. Next slide. Here's the before and after. Again, red is bad. Before, with that poor detection zone, we had a lot of split failures, and now look at it on the right, reduced quite a bit. Next slide. Southbound, operating with a lot of capacity. Dan, that's the Garrison leg. So it's operating maybe even too efficiently. You could potentially take time away from Garrison, to be perfectly honest. But it's going well, going southbound. Next slide. And here's that southbound, another graph showing how well it's working. Next slide. And next steps, what we're going to do, if this board concurs, is look at increasing that AM time of day plan. Currently from 10 seconds, we should at least try to match it to 40 seconds. But I've made a request to GBNRTC, providing them this data. We're asking for their assistance to retime that accordingly. They are currently looking at it right now. Additionally, northbound throughs, this has already been done, where we modified that actuation zone. Eastbound, you don't have to touch. Southbound, you could potentially shorten that green max slightly to offset that, adding additional time to the westbound left. So the moral of the story here is, yes, traditional synchro analysis is great, but it does have its limitations, and the smart signals provides us the ability to look at things as they are occurring day to day and make adjustments as necessary. These are the recommendations from MyoVision. I ask for your guidance. Thank you.
Any comments or feedback for Chris?
Chris, have you received any feedback from the village?
Nope, I invited, what's her name again, the trustee?
Eileen?
Eileen here. I was hoping she would attend, but we'll provide her with the video and the data and go from there.
So everything's in operation that we saw.
No, not the retiming of the westbound lefts. That reducing from 10 seconds to upping it to 40 has not yet been implemented. We're having GBNRTC taking a look at it since they did the original timing plan, and then I'm asking them to redo the timing plan so we can implement.
My assumption is if you just flip that to 40 seconds right now, it could potentially negatively impact the other legs that are currently working well, correct?
Not really. I think what you could do today is take the PM time of day plan and just mirror it to AM without any major negative effects. I wouldn't want to go tinkering with just adding time willy-nilly to one leg without, looking at what it does to the other legs. And I think that PM time could be duplicated to just be used in the AM with probably better effectiveness than what's out there now. But again, I'm going to kind of rely on the experts who do timing plans to give me guidance.
And then just one other question here. I'm in favor of your potential solutions. This signal also goes into a PM overnight flash phase, doesn't it, from the resident that was here a
No.
couple months ago asking? No.
He wanted that,
He wanted
and we are not doing that.
Correct, but there was a request from him to flip the major leg in the PM overnight hours, wasn't there? Would that be part of that timing plan change? Because right now, it locks to that major leg of the westbound, right? It gives that the preference overnight. People making that left left. And his ask was to flip it so that would actually be stop controlled.
Yeah, that is what he has asked. But this upcoming
My
timing
question is,
plan wouldn't do that. It would give more time to.
No, my question here is that if we're going to take on this project and we've sent it to GNRTC, mess up
GBNRTC, yep.
all their letters, not in front of me, can't recite them all. If we sent it over to them and we have that recommendation from this board for that to be reviewed by our highway department, is that change also being considered as part of the reprogramming of this signal, or could that be taken into consideration as the signal's reprogrammed?
It could, but I'd have to review the minutes to see if that's truly what you recommended. Do you recall you recommending some change there for operation at nighttime hours?
No, that was received and filed by the board.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I thought we referred it to highway to look at the timing.
No. I think you referred it to highway to see if it was even a possibility, and they nixed it immediately. The current highway superintendent said, no, we are not tinkering with nighttime timing plans.
Okay, so then that would be my ask, since our highway superintendent is out of office in less than 30 days, and we have a new one coming in, and we're sending this to somebody else for evaluation and consideration, can we request that they put that into consideration as well from our meeting minutes before?
I can give GBNRTC your review and the resident request, and then have them come up with their own recommendation. But typically, you would, on a nighttime situation, allow the free-flowing traffic to go westbound lefts and northbound rights, because that is the major, and they're held green. I don't know what it's doing now,
Right,
but
but when we looked at that, it's kind of a weird configuration because we're basically locking a left-hand turning arrow to the green phase, So we're basically locking it on a
right.
giving the left-hand turning lane free flow.
And the residents said high speeds, drunks, whomever, are coming down Worley, not realizing they need to turn, and they were veering off course and going into his shrubs here.
Right, so the ask was that we didn't leave the left turning arrow, basically, we didn't leave that as the dominant green leg, which would force them to make a stop there. That's my only ask, is that since we have the request and the comment, is it something we can have them take under consideration as part of one single phase to reprogram the entire signal?
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that action, but I'll have GBNRTC look at it and consider it.
Okay. I don't know if anybody else on the board, feel free to object to what my ask is.
I think it makes sense to look at the overall signal operations if this is something that's been brought up before. If they're going to look at it anyway.
So is this board in favor of what Chris had up there as the potential next steps?
Can we look at the results next month or 2 months from now, in theory?
Yeah, but once it's implemented, you can look at the
So if
results.
it doesn't work, we can make an adjustment.
I think I already asked Myovision to look at it again. I would probably, since these things are already set up, so all you have to do is just click a button and they rerun it again. So it would take probably half an hour of their time to look at it again, post, and do a little bit of analysis to see how effective. Good idea.
Seems like a good test.
Get it implemented, yeah.
All in favor of recommendation from Chris on potential solutions? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried 9-0. Next order of business is item number 5, 2014 ATSB meeting schedule for us to adopt the schedule. I will just make one comment here for my own, whatever you want to call it, selfishness. I'm looking at this agenda before us. We have one member of this board that has resigned. Patrick Wanamaker has resigned the position of the board, which leaves us with one open position. We have 3 other members of this board who are up for reappointment by the town board. Don't know their position. They don't have to disclose to us here at this meeting tonight if they plan to seek reappointment or not.
I think there's 4.
4? That's right. I'm sorry. We have 4. We have 4 members that are up for reappointment and one open position. As part of this board, we have 10. We need 6 members for a quorum to host a meeting, 6 members to host a meeting where we can vote, 5 members in attendance to even have the meeting. So we have a potential, depending on the appointments to this board, that we may only have 5 members come January 1st. If we have members returning to this board based on their discretion, or if the town board approves them, we don't never know where that is going to move or where that's going to go. So with that, I'm just pointing this out because April 3rd meeting, that is the week after Easter, where all of the schools are closed. I am personally on vacation that week. I'm not sure if there's any other board members that have vacations scheduled around spring break that week from the schools. So if we are not fully appointed at that point and we are 1 member short, we have the potential that we'd have to cancel that meeting. So just putting that out there on the table if we want to look to that as an alternative date, or if we want to just hold it now at April 3rd and take into consideration when we know our membership in January for an adjustment, we can do that as well. I don't know if anybody else has any dates up there that are concerning, or if we would move to change. Yeah. So all in favor, I'll make a motion to approve as proposed. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Greg. We can open up for further discussion or accept and move on.
If I may just say, if you're a board member and you want to be reappointed, make sure that I know about that. That's all.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Meeting agenda dates approved for 2024. With that, I'll open up to the board if there are any other items for new business to bring before the board. With that none being heard, we'll close new business and we will open up old business. Item A, Tonawanda Creek Road. Request to lower speed limit again. Our recurring speed limit.
All right, so this location, you shouldn't be a stranger to this location. Tonawanda Creek speeds is a common request to look at. We did do recent counts. We also have an old count on record from 2020 that is somewhat nearby. We're looking at around 635 Tonawanda Creek, which is that section between Niagara Falls Boulevard and Sweet Home Road. Speed limit is posted at 45. And here are the counts. So the date of the count was in early November. What's that? Oh, sorry. Yeah. So the 85th percentile speed is 47 miles per hour. The book tells you to sign roadway speeds within 5 miles per hour of the 85th percentile. So that does check that box, being that it's 45 miles per hour. The resident is saying that speeds are too high for that section and is asking for consideration to lower it. That's in the eastbound, and this is in the westbound, 47 miles per hour as well. Total volume of traffic is 6150 on an average day. Highest peak time of speeding is occurring at the 7 o'clock hour with an average of 9 vehicles going over 55 miles per hour. Yes, as Kevin pointed out, drivers typically drive at the rate that they are comfortable driving that roadway section at, regardless of what signage is. That is pretty much the definition of what the 85th percentile is. So any type of sign change is likely not to result in driver behavior to lower their speeds.
Any accidents?
I didn't look, to be honest.
A bike path along there.
Yeah, so this is part of the Empire State Trail.
But it's separated.
Here it's off-road, but then it crosses. It's just really not well done by the state. We are improving this next year with a better ramp and connection to this sidewalk. So that'll be improved next year. We've already got a bid and awarded it. Just going to wait till spring weather. But it does go on-road for quite a while and then hops back off to off-road eventually. I don't remember where. But this is the section where there's, yeah, here we go. So there is signs for that Empire State Trail for on-road use in that section.
There's a lot of bikers on it. Bicycles.
The passing zones. If those exist, I wouldn't be opposed to getting rid of them.
I believe you already made that recommendation.
I thought we made it for this more southern section. Did we?
I think I said Sweet Home to Niagara Falls Boulevard.
Oh, you said
And
the
then,
whole section. Okay.
and then the follow-up, the county agreed that next time they do striping, they would make it solid. Yes.
I think the 85th percentile speed shows the 47 miles per hour, that even if we reduce the speed limit, people will still drive 47 miles per hour. And
They'll just get angry because it's
changing
not.
a sign on the street isn't going to change the driver's behavior, unfortunately.
It would be. An accident history might be enlightening, but I don't know.
To what end?
Again, I don't know. What's gonna change? People are still gonna go 47 miles an hour.
You would need a, you would need a redesign of the trail, everything else, to change the configuration of the road to actually get people to slow down, so I'm assuming that's,
It's a busy street.
you said that's county road, correct?
Yes.
So if we wanted to drop the speed there, we'd have to seek the county's approval to do so, and based on the speed data, it's not supported, it's gonna be 87.
Yeah,
County's gonna say no.
We've already went out to them for the entire town of Oneida Creek, saying that they would they consider a mass reduction to make it one consistent speed, and they were not in favor, given the data we provided them.
With that, I would move to receive and file based on the counts that we have and other work that's been done on this stretch and rejected by the county.
Great.
All in favor?
Someone's gotta second it.
Nine, oh, sorry.
I'll second it.
Well, second, Ken, all in favor, Kevin, all in favor?
Aye.
Receive and file, item closed. Item B, we have already discussed. New road, we are holding until we have county plans provided. And item D, Maynard Drive near Main Street, that is also being held pending the site distance study, and Chris has potentially additional resources coming to him in January that should hopefully get that to us. So that will probably also be held in for the January meeting, correct, Chris, and reviewed in February, is what we're looking at?
Yeah, we're going to shoot to try to get this done for the January meeting.
Okay. With that, any other old business to bring before the board?
Yes, I do have one, hopefully very quick. The item we had last month on Bailey and about the possibly changing Bailey to a one-way. At that time, I had suggested painting the Bailey and Hennel intersection with four crosswalks on all four legs. The residents at that time had said that there already were crosswalks on all four legs, and I went and confirmed afterwards, and they were mistaken. They must have thought I was talking about Hennel and Alberta or something like that. So there currently are only north-south crosswalks. There are no east-west legs of that crosswalk. So personally, I would like to make the recommendation to Highway to install those, given the amount of pedestrian traffic there.
Yeah, this does get a decent amount of pedestrian traffic going between here and BJ's. I've seen a bunch of people just traveling between these two plazas.
Craig, is that a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion for that.
I will second that motion.
Motion and second, further discussion. I will just state that this board was in favor of doing that at the last meeting, but we were told it was already done. So I am also in favor since it's not done.
Right.
So with that, any further discussion? None being heard, all in favor to refer to Highway?
Aye.
Aye opposed. Motion carried 9-0.
Didn't that guy say he works for the highway department? And they just remilled that street or redone that
He
street?
was
It was done?
retired from the highway department.
Any other old business to bring before the board? None being heard, we will close the old business section and thank our liaisons for their attendance this evening. And we will move to the site plan portion of the meeting, where we will only retain Chris and Tom. They're in for the long haul.
Thank you, guys. Happy holidays. Good night.
We should.
Happy holidays to everyone.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said the heart patient at night.
All right, so our first site plan
join
this
the
evening
change?
is for Sheridan Drive proposed restaurant. We have the petitioner here with us this evening, along with other representatives from the developer and their attorney. So like normal site plans, we will open up the floor to them to present their plan.
Which one is this?
This is 5105 and 5117 Sheridan Drive.
Jefferson number A, all right.
Thank you. Good evening. David Chaez, Executive Vice President and Real Estate Partner with Iscalo Development. I've got a great band with me tonight. On lead guitar, Sean Hopkins. On drums, Nick Dulp, our Vice President of Development. And on bass guitar, Pat Sheedy from the engineering firm of Carmina Wood. Haven't been before this board for a while. Nice to be here. Talk about this neat little project at the corner of Sheridan and Mill. If we go to the presentation, Chris. ISCLO 5117 Sheridan LLC is the ownership entity. The project site really involves the corner parcel 5105 Sheridan Drive at Mill Street, but also includes the interconnection with 5117 Sheridan Drive, which is the Muddy Taco. This is actually part of a larger assemblage. We have 2 additional properties at 553 and 543 Mill. All in total, it's 1.75 acres, but the project we're talking about tonight is just the one that involves 5105 Sheridan Drive and the connection to 5117. We did rezone the entire assemblage last year to DC3. Next slide, please. Just to give you a bit of history of the 2 parcels, I'm sure you're familiar with them, they've been around for a long time. 5105 Sheridan Drive was a gas station, I think, dating back to the 40s and 50s, then became a Valvoline instant oil change. Then been vacant. We bought it in 2016, remediated the rather extensive petroleum contamination that existed on the property. 5117 Sheridan Drive was a former longtime Burger King, kind of an old prototype. They moved out of that. We were able to lease it to Muddy Taco, and the building was renovated, and they occupied the building. Next slide. So this kind of shows the lay of the land for 5105 and 5117. We have more recently re-subdivided these parcels. So the 5105 Sheridan Drive parcel, which used to be just on the corner, now includes a much larger area. And the 5117 Sheridan Drive parcel, which was much larger, is now much smaller. You can see that the 2 parcels are currently disconnected. Part of what we're doing here with this project is connecting them. I will mention that, the study area for the TIS, we thought we'd put this slide in here. So the study area for the TIS at the town board's request was to extend all the way to Hawkins Road to the east, as well as to the Mill Street school driveway to the south. We just thought we would show that. The distance between the driveway that we would be proposing for on Mill Street for the coffee retailer 5105 is about 660 feet from the school driveway as measured by Google. So the first phase of this redevelopment involved the redevelopment of the former Burger King. The second phase is the redevelopment of this corner. So the first step following remediation will be to demolish the existing building that's there. It's antiquated, it's old, replace it with a new 2,400 square foot building that'll be occupied by a national coffee retailer. I can't say it is, but my guess is by the end of this meeting, if not before, you'll figure out who it might be. So also, as I mentioned, interconnect the 2 parcels. We'll be removing 3 driveways on Sheridan Drive, but we'll be replacing one of the central driveways with a main driveway, 1 in and 2 out. A new paving and landscape. We have a site plan application that we filed on November 20th. The building at the corner will be reviewed by the Design Advisory Board next week, and we hope to be before ZBA and Planning Board in January. So it's just a glimpse of the before and after of the beautiful Burger King and the much more beautiful Muddy Taco. And then, of course, the existing building on the top left and kind of an early rendering of the proposed building on the corner. Notice that distinctive but blank circular logo sign. Hint, hint, hint. So, the site plan that was with your application is a very busy plan to look at. We're going to break that down in the next couple of slides, but we thought just to kind of get started with the site plan, let's do kind of a cleaned up, uncluttered, colored version. One of the things that attracted this national coffee retailer to this site, as you can see, is the depth of the parcel and what they wanted to avoid, which is what is experienced in many other locations on Sheridan Drive and Main Street, is backups, queuing and drive lanes onto the main thoroughfares. So more than anything else, I don't know if there's ever such a thing as a perfect plan, but the one thing we had to accomplish with this plan was making sure that we had queuing set up so we don't have any risk of backups onto Sheridan Drive. So as I mentioned, there's existing 3 driveways on Sheridan Drive. There's 1 on Mill Street, so there's 4 current driveways. We'll take that down to 2. We expect that's the most that DOT will permit. The Sheridan driveway will be the main driveway, 1 lane in, 2 lanes out. We'll have a right-in, right-out only drive lane on Mill Street. Both buildings combined will add about a total of 5,000 square foot. The Mighty Taco building will remain unchanged. We'll have 59 parking spaces in total, 43 of which are patron parking, which is all in front, and then 16 employee parking spaces in the rear. Next slide. This is a really messy, busy, squeezed a lot of 10 pounds of you-know-what in a 5-pound bag. But one of the things I wanted to point on this slide is 2 things, actually. While we welcome your comments and your input today, I will share that I've been doing this for 43 years. I've probably never spent as much time and done as many iterations on a site plan, especially one this small as we've done on this one. In addition to our own input as a developer and our engineer, we had to have input from the National Coffee Retailer and their engineering team. Mighty Taco had to have their input on it. We've had 2 meetings with the planning board. We had a meeting with Chris last week, planning department. A meeting with Chris last week. So there's a lot of inputs got into this plan. Doesn't preclude you from giving us yours, but it's a pretty well vetted plan. One thing I should note here is that this plan shows stacking at 16 cars here and stacking at 10 cars for Mighty Taco, but that condition will never exist because those represent the peak hour for each of those. The Mighty Taco is not open in the morning. Their peak hours from noon to 1. The retailer's peak hours are in the morning, so that shows a condition that really would not occur, but we have to represent that on the plan. So I just kind of broke it down into 2 sections just so we could kind of talk about little things. Some of the changes that we've made over the last few weeks have been very subtle. Just want to make sure we illustrated the right-in, right-out driveway, which we designed with input from the planning department. Also wanted to point out that based upon one of our recent meetings, we took this curb line and we pushed it back just to improve maneuverability and circulation in this area because you have both inbound traffic and outbound traffic. The other thing that you may not have picked up on, this is an existing island, landscaped island for Mighty Taco. Mighty Taco's requested that that be a raised curb and not landscaped. We have to go for a variance for that, but that's, once again, that's really to help them with deliveries, which they typically get on Friday mornings, to allow a truck to kind of come in and then back up and pull out. But you'll also see that this is where all the patron parking is. We got 49 spaces up front. Another important thing. So incoming car here would have a choice of 2 lanes. This would be striped to be the coffee retailer's lane that will take you back to their drive-through. This lane will be striped for Mighty Taco. We'll also post a sign here that will indicate what these 2 lanes represent, just in case you got a snow-covered day and the striping is not visible. Next slide, please. So this is the rear portion of the site. So that National Coffee Retailer lane continues back here and then ties into their 16-car stacking. You can see the locations for the employee parking. There's a trash enclosure here that's existing that will be shared between the 2 occupants of the site. So we had comprehensive traffic analysis completed by SRF Associates, now Passero Associates. That was done as part of the rezoning back in October of 2022. Now that was done for the full assemblage. Because of the DC3 zoning we were pursuing, we had to reflect a potential development for the 2 homes at 553 and 543 Mill Street. We're not planning on redeveloping those at any time in the future, but we had to represent that in our plan. So that study reflected not only the coffee retailer and Mighty Taco, but also an 18-unit apartment building. But as I mentioned, those 2 buildings, or those 2 houses that will remain there for the foreseeable future. Subsequent to that, and more recently, coming out of our meeting with the planning department, we asked TIS to prepare a supplement just to kind of discuss the internal site circulation of the project site. and make any suggestions or recommendations. And then following a meeting with Chris, Brian Armstrong, and town planning on the 27th, we asked, a question was raised about queuing for the westbound left-hand turn lane from Sheridan Drive on the Mill. So that was the second supplement that Passero provided. Next slide, please. So going back to the traffic study, I just kind of stating the conclusions from that here in succinct form. Item 1 kind of talks about the peak entering and exiting for the AM and PM peak. The Mill Street right in right out driveway, according to Passero, will function appropriately during peak weekday travel periods. The Middle driveway, Mill Street Middle School driveway, which we were asked to study at the request of the town supervisor. There's no conflict between this driveway and the AM peak for our Mill Street driveway. The sufficient stacking at the proposed drive-throughs. Now at that time, we only had a drive-through that, if you looked at the exhibit to the TIS in 2022, that was a slightly different site plan that only showed a 11-car stacked queuing lane for the coffee retailer. That's since been increased to 16. Projected traffic impact from full development can be accounted by existing transportation network, and it was the professional opinion of Passero that there were no potentially significant adverse impacts. It's important to note from in that study is that, especially with the coffee retailers, I'm sure this board's familiar, a high percentage, like 70 to 75% of the trips coming into the site and exiting the site are passed by traffic. So it's traffic is already going in a certain direction. They're stopping here, doing what they need to do, get their cup of coffee, and then heading on their way, versus newly generated trips. Next slide, please. So the supplement that we asked TIS to prepare was just an assessment of the internal circulation. They point out, of course, something I've already mentioned, that the Mighty Taco and the coffee retailer's hours are complementary. The Mighty Taco doesn't open until 10 a.m., which is after the peak interval for the proposed coffee retailer. The greatest overlap between the two occurs between 11 a.m. and noon. And once again, the site can handle it. It's got ample stacking with virtually no risk of vehicles backing onto Sheridan Drive. Next slide, please. And this was the last supplement they provided, a question about queuing for westbound left-hand turning lane, especially during the AM peak hour. And the distance from the proposed Sheridan driveway to the Mill Street intersection is about 175 feet. So at the 95% queue length is when there might be some conflict, but because of the signalization changes and stuff in the intervals between, it is Passero's opinion that this is not a conflict. It will not really impede the successful performance of the property. So just concluding, we think the project checks all the boxes. It completes the redevelopment and improves the appearance of a very tired corner. Connects two previously disconnected parcels, consolidates driveways from Sheridan Drive. It accommodates two very complementary, high-quality retailers. The deep parcel depth really reduces the risk of any backup on a major thoroughfare, and is consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan. Anything you want to add, Sean? With that, we're happy to answer your questions. I'm sure you do.
Oh, I'm sure we've got questions. My first question is removal of the 3 curb cuts on Sheridan Drive, consolidating to 1. If there's 3 there currently, is the request of DOT to remove them as part of this project or not? I'm just curious as to why you're removing curb cuts.
All of the traffic information that we've submitted on November 20th and the subsequent, of course, as the planning department always does, has been referred to DOT. DOT has not yet commented, but we've all worked enough with DOT to know that they're going to ask for a request to reduce the driveways, specifically those 2 driveways on 5105 that were part of the former Valvoline gas station. So knowing that's coming, we decided let's consolidate the driveways. Let's put it in a driveway that makes sense. And again, the supplemental queuing analysis that was conducted by Passero Associates based on the meeting we had with the engineering department, the planning department on November 27th demonstrates that that particular driveway, we're okay with respect to vehicles heading west on Sheridan and then reaching the signal. Whereas those existing driveways on 5105, obviously they get blocked.
So if we're removing curb cuts to Sheridan Drive,
Correct.
and we're restricting access to Mill, 5105 remains an independent property, so we're putting a lot of restrictions onto that parcel. So reason why I'm saying this is that we're not going to, is this all becoming one unified site with the town?
Yes.
And it's all owned by one entity.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Well, because I'm just going to go here with this, and I'm just going to keep going down this. I am not a proponent or a fan of the driveway entrance location on Sheridan Drive and the access to the back part. You have cars that are exiting the drive-through that are going to have to cut across traffic entering from all your traffic is entering from Sheridan Drive. You have cars coming in, the cars leaving the drive-through. You have a major conflict point there because the cars leaving have to cross over the cars coming in. Right? That driveway should be shifted closer to Mill to align that to be a straight shoot out. But if you do that, you're then going to have a conflict with your cars coming in. So it's almost like you want to have two separate driveways. One is an exit driveway, one is an enter driveway to reduce your conflicts. So not necessarily in agreement with removing the curb cuts unless DOT is demanding that they be eliminated.
I just know from, and I think Planning Department Traffic Safety can chime in, they are not going to allow us multiple curb cuts onto Sheridan. There's no.
I should also add, I respect the comment that this question was raised in discussion with Planning Department. And one of the comments in the supplemental TIS was that at periods of high incoming traffic, the expected natural movement from anybody in the drive-through lane of the coffee retailer would exit to the left to avoid incoming traffic, which is the benefit of the right in, right out
We have
driveway.
no exit to the left other than a restricted movement. So if I'm leaving there and I want to head back towards Main Street, I have to exit to Sheridan Drive to go to the signal to make a left because I have no means to exit on Mill Street and make a left. So I'm also questioning why we're restricting to right in, right out only on Mill.
Well, that condition exists currently with the Mighty Taco. If you want to head towards Main Street, because I go to that property fairly frequently, my office is on Main Street, and I typically exit heading right on Sheridan Drive and just coming up Hopkins Road. It's really not that far. So I think there are options. And Evans, Hopkins, Evans. Now, the other point that the consultant makes is that the folks that are coming to this coffee retailer, generally speaking, they do that habitually. It's not a destination. It's something they go to regularly, and they will determine, based on the time of day that they go there, which is fairly consistent, their regular pattern of travel that's the least inconvenient for them. So I don't mean to disagree with you openly, but I think there are responses to your concern that I think the plan does address. Having said that, if we had our druthers, we would have more driveways there, but we're fairly certain that that's DOA, so we did not want to proceed through a extensive planning process with the two tenants, knowing that would have to change again at the very last minute when DOT does what we expect them to do.
And nowadays, I'm working on many projects where I'm struggling to get one driveway onto a state highway. If there's any driveway, regardless of whether it's a side street, a residential street, DOT cites their policy like that they want controlled access. So.
I guess there's a lot of conflicts and a lot of issues going on there with conflicting points on this drawing. So what is the rationale and reason to put that drive-through line going all the way to the back and not reconfigure the site for the future development area to have queuing or something in that area, reposition the building using that space, and then put your future apartment development on the backside behind the Mighty Taco and proposed coffee retailer, right? So you're putting that driveway going all the way to the back. With that parcel that's sitting there for future development area, I just think there's a better way that the buildings could be positioned to allow for that queue to not have the conflict points on the site. I understand you're reserving that future development area for future development, but it just,
Well,
to me,
I would
seems like it's
submit
in the
that
way.
if all we were trying to solve, if all we were trying to solve was that question that you just raised, and economics didn't matter to us, then that might be a solution. But in trying to appropriately develop the property, harvest a reasonable return from the investment in the real estate, and utilizing what we think is the least valuable portion of that real estate, the deepest portion for stacking, makes the most sense to us. So we're considering more than just, and we're forced to consider more than just the stacking question. We have to consider how we utilize this property in order to be economically viable.
And I would also note, as part of the rezoning review process, the Supervisor Culpa, specifically asked us to leave those houses for the foreseeable future. He just didn't. I mean, I don't want those knocked down until you're putting a new multifamily project there. And that's what that underlying zoning encourages.
I understand. I will just, my comment to that is, he's the supervisor, he's not the residents of the
I know,
town.
I know. No, I'm not, and I'm not
I
saying
mean,
he's
but
a traffic
he does have final say on a lot of items.
Right. No, and it's not final say, but that's request was specifically made. And the other thing that I think is just as important is, as Dave indicated, this will rectify a situation that's far worse right in the immediate vicinity, which I think is a good situation. I mean, a good improvement.
Presently, there's no restriction on the ingress and egress from Mill Street. Now, it's a very small parcel, it's disconnected, but if we rented that building as is, there would be no restriction at all in how that street's used, or how that driveway is used. We think the right in, right out's a better solution. Granted, the building's not being connected with the 5117 property, but we think it's a better condition than what exists today if that building was leased for a high volume use.
Yeah, I don't see a person, I understand your comment that a person pulling out of the drive-through is going to go to the left to go to the signal. They'll do that if they're proceeding on Sheridan Drive going to the west, but there's no reason for them to turn to the left to go to the signal to go to the east on Sheridan Drive. They're going to go to the right and go out that driveway.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
And based on the stacking cars and traffic that you're projecting and what we see from other national coffee retailers on that stretch and the way cars stack in the morning, I think you have numerous conflicts developing there. I also have issue with the cars coming down the lane in the middle. They come down, come straight, keep going down, Chris. So what's forcing that person to make that left-hand turn to loop around that queue and just not go straight and turn in there?
If there are no cars stacked there, that driver may do that. If there is a backup to that point and well, I'm asking you, have you ever tried to sneak into a drive-through
Oh,
line?
I know they're not going to let you through, but what happens when they don't see the cars stacked over there because they're just not paying attention? They're distracted by their phone and everything else, and now they get there.
24 feet wide. I don't know how they wouldn't see a car stacked there. Unless I'm misunderstanding your comment.
No, I'm saying that you're driving down through there, there's not a long stack of cars over to there, you're not paying attention because you're distracted by everything else you're doing in the morning, and we know, you can't text and drive, but we know what they do. Now they miss that turn for some reason and go straight. They have no place to go because the cars that are stacked in front of them, now they're backing up, there's another car behind them. You got a conflict there.
Well, that's true anywhere. I mean, I'd rather have them do it here than at the Mill Street, middle school driveway.
I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just,
And,
the turn to the left to go to the right for the drive-through is, I think, a little goofy.
Well, along the same lines, I see a lot of people maybe going down into that area saying, oh my gosh, the line's too long, I can't wait, and they want to get out, and along the same lines as how they can't.
Well, they'd have to back into a space.
Well, if it's filled with employees, it's going to be hard.
And the purpose, obviously, the purpose for here and here is to provide an exit point for somebody who gets in a queue, changes their mind, gets a phone call, has to leave right away, and needs to get out of that lane rather than trying to drive over a median. So you can't have that and then not, I guess, have the potential risk that somebody might try and enter that spot. There's no way of accomplishing both. But we think and this retailer who has 5,000, 6,000 locations, and their experience, this is the much more desirable outcome than having a situation where there is no exit lane or escape lane.
That is actually kind of a good idea, being able to get out, like, oh my God.
The only thing,
This is a big improvement over where they're at now.
Well,
If I'm guessing who it is.
I have a question though, is where they are gonna stay, is this gonna be duplicate, or
No,
is?
it's a replacement.
It's a replacement, so that's gonna go away.
I
We're
can't
gonna
say
have-
that, my attorney can't.
Okay. I mean,
But the,
You know how
the
close
internal
it is.
circulation isn't good where they are now.
No, it's
The
terrible.
external circulation is horrible.
Right. And that's what matters more.
And I know that's not our job to just make things better, but it is a big improvement.
There's a-
And,
there's a
and with the
location.
post office, they're.
Right.
That is what is driving this.
The other location's been before, you know, it's been, their backwash has been before the board here many times.
Many times.
just while we're on the topic of the ability to exit the lane if you get a phone call or whatever, like you said, if you were to leave, or even if you park in that back area, the fact that the entrances are like arrowed, they're marked as arrowed inwards. So if you were to park in the back, you'd essentially be you'd be driving in like a travel lane where you've kind of directed other traffic to be driving. So I'm almost wondering if removing those arrows in that kind of center, I can't really point to it, but essentially, if you were to remove those and make that a little bit more of an ambiguous area, and then say like, entrance to Starbucks this way. Sorry, whoops, I mean to the National Unidentified Coffee Retailer. You get what I'm saying? Like, it just
I
kind
do. I'll tell you that this suggestion came from planning department. It actually create the separate lanes. So we thought that was a good suggestion, so we did it. We didn't start there. And I think the intention was if you're leaving the site, you would leave to the right side and take this lane out. I believe that was the intention of the planning department when they made that suggestion to us. We could certainly change this all on paper at this point, but I'm just giving you the background of how that arrived on the plan.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
So I just want to point out one more thing. In your own traffic study, the page here, figure 6A, you had stated when you presented to us that you feel majority of the traffic is going to leave the drive-through line and turn to the right.
I'm sorry, could you repeat it for me, please?
Your traffic is going to pull out of the drive-through lane and they're going to turn to the left, is what you're saying is the natural progression of a person pulling out of the drive-through. However, what I'm pointing out here is your traffic study is showing that 79% of the people leaving the site are going to go to the driveway on Sheridan Drive. So 79% of the cars, you've got 79% of the traffic entering the site. You got 60%, 34%, so that's 94% of the traffic is coming in on that driveway. 79% of the traffic is leaving on that driveway.
Right.
And we're saying, so that's,
But 60% of that traffic, of that 79 that's using Sheridan, is heading east.
yeah, but they still have to go through that bottleneck of the 94% of the traffic of the site coming in.
So once again, the point that you're raising, which is a good one, was one that was raised at our second planning department meeting. And that was the reason for the supplemental TIS, which I can't recite it by verse, but what Amy from Passero said is that at points where that incoming traffic may be congested and an individual is in that, about to exit that drive-through lane, and more than likely that individual exiting that lane has been to that Starbucks, I'm sorry, shame on me, been to that coffee retailer many times before, is going to know that at that point in time, their best maneuver is to exit to the left. So somewhere in that percentage of traffic, during that interval where there's incoming traffic and that person's ready to depart that lane, they'll go to the left. Now, we had the thought of, what if we just made that a left-hand turn only coming out of that? That's an option for us. But we thought, well, when it's not busy, why would we restrict that movement? So we did visit this and talk about it, but based upon what our consultant advised, said, listen, I wouldn't do that because most times of the day that will be an easy maneuver to make. There'll be limited intervals where that incoming traffic might create congestion, in which case that person exiting will more than likely make a turn to the left and exit out on Mill Street.
I firmly disagree that that's an easy maneuver to make at that intersection pulling in there. There is a tremendous amount of traffic coming on Sheridan Drive heading eastbound in the AM hour. Getting up to the,
Chris, could you go back to the site plan, please? The colored one, because it's easier to read.
I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of, Chris, if you can just go back to that real quick. Right? You've got an intersection that's right up here. I'm just going to come over here. I'm just gonna, you've got an intersection here. You got people that are going to be pulling in here, sitting in this area, queued up with people trying to make the turn here. Cars coming this way. I'm sitting here. I'm going to gun it to cut across the traffic pulling into here, and I have no idea that this guy that's in the drive-thru right here is coming across at the same time to come in. I'm making my left-hand turn here into the site. I'm looking at the cars here. I'm not looking at the guy coming out of the driveway going this way. That's where my concern is this guy coming here is not watching for this guy. And how do you stop that from happening when this person coming in making the left is watching cars here, and this person pulls out here, out of the drive-thru to come up here and go right or left onto here?
Well, that's
This
why we pulled that curb line back so that you can immediately.
So if you go back to there
you go.
You're coming all the way up to here. I'm pulling out here, coming. Can you drag this down? You can bring.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So I'm coming out of here. I'm not watching for this car making the left-hand turn in. I'm coming across here. I come turning in. I'm not watching for this guy here. Boom. You're gonna have crashes right there. But I guess that's on your site, not on Sheridan Drive. That would concern me.
Noted.
What may impact Sheridan Drive if this queue's here and it has the inability for throughs to come through, it may back out into Sheridan. You know, I did look at your supplementary study, and you did provide queues, and your presentation shows queues for Sheridan specific to the left turn lane going westbound. And this looks okay considering the distance from the intersection. You know, that 214 is the 95th percentile. But what you're not showing is I'm going to try to do this. And I apologize, board, you might not have seen the supplementary study because this just came out. Is the queues for the westbound through right, which are exceeding way past your driveway at 50th percentile of 388 and 442 for the 95th percentile. So I recognize that you are saying that the majority of your exiting traffic is going out to Mill, but we all know the distance to Mill and that proximity of the left turn. It's just completely set back from the intersection. It is going to be very difficult to head westbound on Sheridan. We just identified that 60% of the traffic are going this way. So a lot of your traffic is passed by. So the reasonable thinking is that the 60% are going to want to continue going westbound. You're relying on this movement for those vehicles to turn westbound, and that stacking for the westbound throughs are way back here, 400 feet away. So I'm a little concerned that the westbound exiting vehicles will have difficulty getting onto Sheridan, either from this entrance or this entrance. If I'm clear on that. Is that the right one? Page 9. Yeah, that's the right one.
But in that situation, Chris, aren't you generally going to go to the right in, right out? You're just going to have to wait for the signal set.
I think you're going to have difficulty turning right onto Mill and trying to get in that left turn bay.
I think that the TS mentions that it'll be blocked, driveway will be blocked 20% of the time, but based upon the time of that signal, it clears every time from their observations. It would clear. So it's a temporary backup, and it clears on every single. Now, that's the engineer's opinion. I'm not a traffic engineer. Obviously, there's a lot of expertise on the panel here. I don't know how to tell you that you're wrong. I'll tell you that we went to the engineer and had her study it, and that's what they came back with. We obviously stand behind the engineer, but your input's very important.
Comments from other board members?
I got one more question. I'm going to go up to the map here.
Bring it down.
You can borrow my pointer if it's easier.
There's a pointer.
My pointer?
That's fine. Can you take it up a little bit, Chris? No, other way. Sorry.
Sorry.
I need to see this loop down here. Just go a little bit more.
Oh, wow, you're really,
Yeah. So we've got this loop that's down here that I mentioned.
It's the next slide, I think, Chris, yeah.
10?
Well, if he goes to the next, this is, he enlarged this. That's why it's not on the full screen. He enlarged it. There you go.
So when we come here, right, I'm assuming you're making this turn because you need these 2 parking spots to meet your parking spot counts. But instead of having this hard turn into there, what stops you from making this more angled and then put the parking spots here as this comes down that way instead of being such a hard turn?
So,
Pat, do you remember if that's one of the many iterations that we looked at? I'm going through I'm pausing because I'm going through my memory banks of all the different things we looked
I brought up
at.
this of the cars coming here, or if this isn't the hard turn and this is more gradual coming over, you're coming through here, you come through here, you have parking spots potentially down in this area as they loop around the parking spots. Maybe gets rid of some of that concern.
I mean, we have played around with this area a ton, and one of the things you'll notice is that these spaces are set back eastward more than these spaces are, so the driveway width here is much wider, much easier to make a turnaround if somebody had to do that at that location and it wasn't congested. We can certainly look at that if we haven't already. Like I said, we've done so many iterations of this, I just don't remember. Do you have any recollection, Pat?
I don't think we laid that out specifically. We had an iteration where that the Mighty Taco Drive came back up. But we never explored, I don't think, going to coffee retail. But yeah, just from a quick glance, I think that's what we explored. As long as the dumpster wasn't blocked at all.
Right.
So your comment about, just now about the dumpster, is that crosswalk that's going through the coffee drive-through, that's purely just to get to the dumpster?
Yeah, that's for their employees, yes, who'll be taking trash out the rear and then having a designated passage pathway to the dumpster.
Okay.
Excuse me.
And then the crosswalk that's going across the right in, right out onto Mill, is there a way that you could reconfigure the concrete around the building there so that that crossing is more of a perpendicular crossing, so it's straight and shorter?
I'm guessing, Pat, you tried to use the island for the walk?
Yeah, I mean, we could, but we would lose a parking space there.
Even just straightening it out, like just bring it this way?
I mean, go straight this way.
Yeah, just go straight horizontal.
Oh, employee parking.
Oh, I'm hitting the microphone, that's the, bring them in here.
And I guess that needs to be balanced
There's a
too.
railing there, but this is a fenced patio, this is rail there, so we have to just make sure.
I
we
like
just-
the shorter crosswalk because it's less distance that the pedestrian has to travel across the asphalt. Devil's advocate, though, is that the pedestrians are going to go in a straight line. So wherever the exit door is, like, just take a look at that and.
Right, they're gonna go the shortest path to the door.
Exactly, yeah. I want them to go the shortest, safest path. Thank you.
And like I said, it's not really visible here, but the reason why I'm sure Pat did that is that this is actually a railed patio at their requirements, so we might be able to bring it a little bit closer to a straight line, or maybe get the retailer to remove a section of the fence so we can go, the rail so we can go straight in. We'll look at that. Good suggestion.
I have a question on the right in, right out on Mill Street. What's to prevent a driver from exiting left on the Mill Street? Is there any separation between the?
We got a
in
pork
and
chop
the
in there.
out?
Raised pork chop.
We've got raised curbing here, Dan, so it's not like McDonald's on Sweet Home. This one's a little more.
Yeah, but you got a
better design, if I
two-lane
can
driveway
say.
to the right. Right? It's two
Could-
lanes,
You're saying,
no,
could
no,
they
no, no.
swing in like this?
Pat, is there a do not enter sign at either side of this?
We don't have it called out currently, but that was one of the comments that we talked to the department our last meeting.
Would that address your concern, sir?
What was the solution?
Having a do not enter sign posted at this driveway since it's inbound only.
Well, some kind of a extended barricade might help.
It's a raised curb.
Well, I see the raised curb, but you've got a double wide driveway there, right? Whatever that driveway width is.
It's 12 feet.
All right, what is it on the coffee property, right? They're right there. What's the width there?
24 feet.
Okay, so you got two-lane traffic there.
Yeah, in and out.
Right. So I decide I'm gonna exit and go
Oh, you're
left
saying
on
you
Main
go
Street,
this
just
way?
go straight out.
I mean, you would be clearly defying all signage in Peter Street.
Well, we have a history of problems with these, these type of intersections in this neighborhood.
I mean, it's a proposed right-in, right-out driveway. I'm
Right,
not
I mean,
sure
a few
how long
bollards
it's
or a
defined.
barricade or something might.
I don't know what you mean by barricade.
I mean, you could do double yellow striping up to this
You need
crosswalk.
to separate the inbound and outbound traffic a little further.
Yeah, the striping's not a bad idea, Chris, at least to
Yeah.
discourage you further.
Dan, would you be okay with the double yellow striping right here? Just to delineate the two lanes?
I'm still,
Go with something that works.
I'm,
And in 95% of the cases, it's gonna work, but we do have experience over at the post office and other places in this town where these things don't
that
work.
number go?
Typical two-lane, 24-foot width driveway.
Right.
You don't exit on the left side, you exit on the right side, regardless if you're going to or
Well, sometimes Amherst drivers drive a little differently.
I don't think you can engineer around that.
Okay.
I mean,
I think the striping idea is a good one, though. It's clearly delineated. It makes sense.
I like that idea.
I'm
Well,
still,
sure.
I mean,
And I think you're gonna probably do some striping coming in off of Sheridan Drive, although I don't know how you're gonna do it. A lot of conflicts there.
if the traffic study is done based on that being a right-in, right-out only,
It is.
That's correct.
but we're still only looking at the traffic coming from Mill Street heading north, 6% of the traffic is entering in. 20% is entering out that way. So if 6% of the traffic is coming in, I'm still questioning why that's right in, right out only.
I mean, immediately when we filed this rezoning application in 2022, one of the comments we got, I forget who it came from or discussion.
I can tell you exactly who it came
Make that
from, but
right in,
that's
right
all right.
out.
I'll keep my
What'd you
mouth
say?
shut. I can tell you exactly who it came from,
Well,
but I'll
say
keep my
who it
mouth
came
shut. It was requested by Danny Lutowski.
Former member of this committee.
That'd be right in, right out only.
And Tom, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I was trying to understand. One of the things you could suggest would be an analysis of a full access driveway against the northbound queuing on Mill Street. And the delay for left-hand turn southbound on Mill and a full queue. And how that would queue back into the site. Having somebody wait to the left on Mill Street at the end.
Right.
You could request that, but the petitioner we can prepare that for you.
I'm sure that would meet with the strong objection of Mr. Lutowski, but we'll do whatever you ask.
I mean, he can have his feelings and his opinion, but I'd like to back it up as to why we're doing it, because
Well, ultimately, it's up to your econ highways. They're the ones that control that section.
Yes.
Section, okay.
Although, keep in mind, this will come in front of you again in your January meeting, because it's 10 days before the planning board meeting, so you will get a chance to see a revised set of plans for this development. So anything you want to request from the petitioner to provide you for that January meeting is within reason.
I'm just going to ask everyone that's here, we still have 6, so we're okay. 7. Am I the only one questioning the right in, right out there?
I think that there's a history, not only just in this area, but within the town, of people ignoring the right in, right out. Not so much on the in, but definitely on the out, making left-hand turns, regardless of how difficult you make it, how sharp the turn is. So if there's the potential that people are going to ignore it, causing a safety concern, I would like to see the numbers to back it up to show that full access would cause traffic issues.
I'm just thinking of the teachers coming from the local school visiting the national retailer. They don't have a way to get back to the school.
And then you get back there quickly. Or not, depending if they can or can't.
I don't know, I'm just,
I don't think there's a problem asking.
yeah, I would like to see data or something that supports why that's being made right in, right out, rather than an opinion of an individual on another
Perfectly
board.
fine with that. Perfectly fine with it.
And I think that may also help you with your conflict points at your other driveway.
Yeah, good suggestion. We're happy to take a look at that.
Ultimately, I will say, I like the drive-in thing going off the front of the property, looping back around behind. All in all, there's a lot about this that I like, even though it sounds like I don't, so.
That's why we're here, to get comments.
You just want to get your coffee.
In the end, this is gonna leave a lot of pressure elsewhere.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan.
This is gonna be desirable in the end.
Taste burnt.
So thank you.
Big aneurysm over here, maybe a smaller stroke over here, but you know.
I do my own because I don't like waiting in line.
Chris, do we have any other comments? Tom, any other things you're looking for?
I mean, you hit a lot of our internal ones already, Eric. You know, that conflict area. I just need to know what I'm going to be putting on the review. If you guys could, you know, voice what you want on the review. It sounds like it's going to be not reviewable based on the fact that you want, you know, additional information specific to this intersection or this driveway, making full access. But anything, I mean, even though it's coming to you in January, the more we give them now, the better it's going to be.
Like that, and also any other potential solutions to resolve the conflict on the exit of the drive-through to inbound traffic. Location of that driveway. I know you've looked at it numerous times, or even if you presented us an option A, option B in a drawing, that why you're supporting this or why you're seeing that, I don't know. I'm kind of stuck on that one.
Mhm. Understood.
Comments from other board members for this?
Oh, and the comment about the crossing on Bill, Chris. Just if you're.
Pedestrian
formalizing
crossing?
your
That's
comments,
fine.
so,
Yeah, there's.
take a look at that.
And looking at this entry point.
What's the comment?
The crosswalk up in that area.
Oh, this one?
Yeah, straight.
Right.
This, and then the,
Yep.
looking at the entry point here.
Yep.
And then Chris striping if it is gonna remain right in, right out on Bill.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the center line striping, the double yellow center, the double yellow.
Stop this right in, right out.
Just to make it even more egregious, should they
So this will come before us again in January.
Looking forward to it.
When is this proposed to open, if all goes well?
All goes well.
He's asking for a friend.
Let me share with you that this started with this particular prospect in January of 2022. Talk about how long projects take. So we're just at this point, and it's been almost 2 years. So if we get the approvals next, say, March, thereabouts, allowing time for building permit to start construction, say in May. This would be open in late fall of 2024. If all goes as planned. Mark knows that everything always goes as planned.
So reality sometime in 2025.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
So in reality sometime in 2025.
Yeah, but we'll evaluate the comments and we'll make sure we get an updated submission back to Chris, and appreciate always, again, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for your
Working
input.
with us before this meeting and, you know.
Just when I think after all this time, there's no other constructive input that anybody can give, you guys impressed me. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Tom, you have other plans for us, right?
Brentwood.
So the other project that Pat Sheedy and I are here for is 5226, 5228 Main Street. Well, if we could go to that one, that would be great.
You know the Delta Scenic on there?
15, yeah, okay, got it.
The new one? Is that fully open?
Where's this?
They had that same wacko kind of traffic going in all different directions there.
Yeah, that place is huge.
Right, I mean,
Yep.
my God.
Yep, I've been in there.
40 acres.
Yeah.
Wait for you to
Seems
chime
to
in.
function okay.
I know.
Because they had this, the long U-turns, the drive-throughs and all this stuff, and we talked about traffic going this way and that.
There we go.
All right, what's this one? What's this one?
They've got a traffic signal there.
5226. That's pretty close by.
George's Market, yeah. So this is 5226 and 5228 Main Street, right in my immediate neighborhood. Just to acclimate everyone, directly to the west of us on Main Street is Key Bank. Directly to the east of us is the Wendy's that I thought one time was going to go out of business, but it's now become the busiest restaurant on Main Street. And then this is the two parcels that are the former George's Market, George's Produce, that now is over near the airport. And so what we're proposing here is a mixed-use redevelopment. Per the zoning classification, we're proposing a 4-story building. We'll have approximately 10,900 square feet of first-floor commercial space, as well as 30 upper-floor apartments on floors 2, 3, and 4. As you can see, this site is relatively narrow, but fairly deep. In connection with the rezoning review process, the planning, actually, it came in front of you guys, and you asked us to consider a cross-access to the Tops Plaza. So we subsequently did update the site plan, and we've shown that. The planning department thankfully reached out to Benchmark. Benchmark is the owner of the Tops Plaza, and Ellicott Development is in discussions with Benchmark. And so long as they would agree to any reasonable terms and conditions, we'll provide that cross-access, which I do believe is also a good idea. And then secondly, Krista Hall, the senior fire inspector, because it's a 4-story building, did also ask whether or not it's required by code. I don't think it is if we have that cross-access. Asked for us to see if we could get an emergency access easement out to North Forest, which would be gated. So we actually have done that, and that's recorded. So you can see that striped area. That will be on the north side of the office building, which is directly behind Key Bank. We did submit a traffic impact study. This project, of course, also because it's on Main Street, and Main Street is a New York State highway, has also been referred to the DOT once we file the site plan application on November 20th. We'll see what their comments are. But overall, we think it's an excellent redevelopment of the site. It's exactly what the new mixed-use zoning districts are called for. This project will also go in front of the planning board for site plan approval, hopefully in January. We want to come in and see if you had any comments. Oh, and I do want to note, Chris provided us with some comments today, and I think Pat would like to at least respond to those. Pat, do you
No,
want
I'll
to
just go over them real quickly so the board doesn't know my comments. So I was looking at this area right here. So, you know, if you were to come into this drive aisle, 24 feet wide, typical drive aisle for two aisles of parking, and there's no parking available, you're going to have to somehow turn around or go backwards. You're stuck there. Likewise, I'm not a big fan of offset parking. You know, if there is the ability to pull through, or at least to escape, or even just for those that want to pull through and be facing out, there's the inability to do so. We typically like those lined up. Those were just my general comments. I've got a couple others while I'm at it. You've got a no parking sign right in the middle of a ramp. That's not going to work. So that's You can do, like a no parking arrow underneath the handicap signs pointing directionally towards the hatched area. And then I'm sure planning's going to comment that they want some landscaped islands where you're showing hatch out there, but not really a traffic safety issue. Those are my only ones. If you want to touch on this area in general, that'd be great, Pat.
And we will, Chris, we'll take a look at that.
Okay.
But the main one was the exit there.
Yeah, and that was your comment as connection with the rezoning. Again, the plan didn't show it then, subsequently, we've added that. So as long as Benchmark agrees to it, we're fine. And there have been, the discussions with Benchmark have been good. The actual person who's handling it, we told them we had a traffic safety board meeting, but they've been out of the office for 2 weeks. So I did send an email to Chris today saying, here's where we're at with the discussions.
So I'm wondering how good the relationship is, because I wonder if there's an opportunity for like a shared parking with that adjacent lot, either to the west or to the north. If you had to modify some of this parking based on my last comment, oh boy, here I go. I am all over the place. And loop this in or some other creative solution that eliminates parking. Where are you with your parking counts? Maybe I'll start there.
We're at the exact number we need.
Okay. Have you approached any adjacent parcels specific to?
No, because we don't think we need it, Chris, so we haven't done that yet. I mean, we all know, and I certainly know because I'm there all the time, there's so much extra parking on the Tops Plaza that's never full, but whether or not they would allow us to use any of it, that's a whole separate issue. And the other thing is, when you enter into leases with all those tenants, you have to, make sure you're not violating those lease rights too, so it's a complicated topic. And if we do lose a parking space, we'll have to figure that out with the planning department. I think we'll still have enough parking. We might be one short by code, and we'll have to figure out what the solution is.
So just for the boards, just to get the
Yep.
magnitude of the project, this is what you're looking at.
And that short side, of course, is what you'll see from Main Street.
I like the big number.
See, I don't.
No, it's a bifocal thing. It's like, there it is. Looking for 522, there it is, right there, you can't miss it.
I mean, I think that'd be a great place to live. I mean, as far as you can do stuff, you can walk places, you can go places.
Well, yeah, that's what they want. They want a place. Is it going to be condominiums, apartments? What's it going to be?
They're going to be apartments.
So assuming you get the cross-access agreement with the Tops Plaza, you would get rid of the emergency gate?
We already have it, so we've worked with Krista for a long time, and they always, more access is better, so we'd probably put it in. Yeah, we all know Main Street gets crowded, like if a fire truck really needs to use it, it'll be there.
But getting rid of it could give you your parking spot.
I know, that is true. Yeah, maybe, right, I know.
Any other comments from the board?
Is this one that we can get a recommendation for approval subject to conditions?
Let me hear what the rest of the board says first.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No problem.
I meant the whole board. I didn't mean you yet.
Okay.
Speaking for myself, wouldn't be opposed to approval with conditions of addressing the turnaround for that driveway of people being blocked in.
Same.
Yeah, I would agree.
Any objections, further comments?
And I did not circulate the TIS. It is available on the website. This did generate less than 100 trips per peak hour, so one would even question the necessity of that TIS. There wasn't any huge findings. Obviously, the adjacent network can accommodate this development.
And we did the traffic study, Chris, just to be proactive.
Yeah, no, I would appreciate that. Okay, hearing no others, we're going to do approve the conditions with those already those comments I've voiced.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
Tom, where are we going next?
1501
Take us on another field trip.
Oh, this is the Romney Plaza.
This is going to be the Outback Steakhouse on Niagara Falls Boulevard. There is a current bank located right here. Looks like it's Northwest Bank that is going to be demoed. In its place will be a restaurant in essentially the same footprint. We'll pull up those plans.
This plaza keeps popping up, doesn't it? What? This plaza keeps popping up.
Yeah. Is it this one?
Yeah. Yep.
So the exact tenant is unknown, but just know that there is a restaurant with a drive-through.
Yeah, so as Chris mentioned, the existing Northwest Savings Bank would be demolished in lieu of the construction of this building slightly larger as a continuation of the build-out of this site, build-out and rehab of this site. Their main access is this driveway to the south here. That comes straight through down one of the drive aisles and would accommodate the queuing for the proposed drive-through, which is on the east facade of the building. Yes, that helps. Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
This one is pretty straightforward as far as the development. I mean, it's a box building. However, there's a lot of pedestrian accommodations that are necessary in the planning department's opinion, and I'm sure yours, that just quite haven't been worked out yet. This, you know, as you probably know, is, in my opinion, the worst pedestrian accommodation in Western New York. There is the start of a public walk to the south that extends just to the, no, I guess not, but that's an old aerial image.
Yeah.
So that southernmost driveway on the site has been since reworked and is reflected on the site plan drawing. And you can see there's the start of a public walk along Niagara Falls Boulevard. So probably the biggest comment from the planning department is to continue that. We're really adamant about continuing to replace a public walk along Niagara Falls Boulevard. We think it's of paramount importance.
Yeah, Tom, can I stop you there? I totally agree, but it's going to be difficult given the landscaping, utilities, hydrants, some weird valve-looking thing over here. I don't even know what this is.
Chris, you're the engineer. You're supposed to know what that is.
What is that?
Fire connection, maybe? I don't know.
I don't know what that is. But anyways, my point is a very limited amount of right-of-way.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not even a right-of-way. It's private property. The right-of-way is right here, if you look at that survey.
Yep.
So was the thinking to start encroaching on their property?
Yeah, so...
encroaching is probably the wrong word.
Yes. They will have to accommodate it within their property boundary. To achieve that, their most likely scenario is to move the building, move everything eastward by, the few feet that it takes to accommodate that walk. However, like you just heard the gentleman from Iskolo say, this only exists on paper. So, nothing is out of the realm of possibility when it comes to that. A lot of people will stand up here and say it's all about finances and it's all about this or that, but keep in mind these plans only exist on paper until they're built in the field. So
you're saying you could push the building back?
Need sidewalk.
yes. So there's nothing that sets this building in stone and its location shown. Right? This is only somebody's drawing and line work on a piece of paper. So don't let that shy you away from making a comment like that. Is it a large ask? Yes, but
Sidewalks, push building back, whatever they need to do.
Yeah.
I think.
5-foot sidewalks and also an easement, a public easement to accommodate that?
yeah, so they would have to provide the town with a reciprocal easement agreement that covers public ingress and egress across the property. Actually, it's not here.
They took it, never mind.
I thought it would be up here.
They took it with them.
Was it theirs?
I got one from like 1982.
Does it work?
No.
Classic.
Key batteries. Let's get a laser flashlight.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Can you catch?
Doesn't work anymore.
Wow, sorry. Guess that wasn't wise.
Sure that isn't an M&T bank?
No, a keyboard, how quaint.
Okay. So I'll keep going because we had a chance to review this one before tonight, so I have kind of fresh set eyes on this. This is a patio outline right here, and it's got kind of a 2 to 3 foot retaining wall, not retaining, but a footer concrete brick wall, concrete masonry wall. The way that they're proposing the pedestrian access to this site is coming from that existing sidewalk, shooting over to this landscape island, which is kind of carved out with a flush mounted curb and stamped masonry. They would then go across the drive aisle northerly to hit this ramp. They would continue north. These are the main entrances of the building. But as you try to continue north, so think about somebody walking that isn't going to go to this site and is just progressing themselves along Niagara Falls Boulevard to go elsewhere. Eventually, they're going to run into this patio, which is fenced off. So they're immediately terminated at this point because of this patio. And then somehow they're going to pick themselves back up at this ramp, proceed across the landscape island and out to that existing stripe that's 30 feet into the site. So
Yeah, I'm not going to put that on paper. I would just stick with put in a 5-foot sidewalk adjacent to Niagara. I hear you though. That's
I
good.
picked
Good
it up
point.
just because we put everything on paper so that they can't dodge it.
Right.
But otherwise, I thought it'd be beneficial to have. Can you scroll down, Chris?
Oh, sorry. Oh boy.
So these stalls over here are more than clearly demarcated for this development. There's no way for a pedestrian to get from these stalls over to a main entrance without traversing a drive-through and a landscape island. So they'll have to accommodate some sort of pedestrian connection from these parking stalls to the front of the building.
And they need those parking spots.
They actually do need those parking spots. This site, if it were to be built today under its current zoning district, which is SC, would not meet the parking requirements. And I think you probably all have experienced this site in its full glory when people are out shopping. It's packed, right? It's busy. So they really do, they need every stall they can get. They provided our office with an alternative parking analysis based on what was previously approved under a mixed-use district, which requires less parking. However, they've chosen to rezone this site to SC, which relies on our, I'll say, old parking standards, but they're current, which requires more parking for a shopping center development than it would under a mixed-use district. So they are now, again, deficient in parking based on the total built-out of the site.
All right. So similar to the Iskolo proposal, there is a way to get out of the drive-through should you change your mind, but it looks like it's past the order window, right?
It is, yeah. So they're also
You might order and then leave? Is that what I'm looking at?
That'll be quite the prank.
So I'm confused on when you don't provide a bypass lane, must they provide an ability to get out? Is that a requirement? Okay, so they're just doing that on their own.
Yep.
What does the board think of that one? It's signed, do not enter. I don't know why you'd ever want to come in this way because it's already past the window.
I could see where it would be confusing. There is a driveway entrance right up here. And I could see where maybe somebody would think to come down and enter the drive-through in the southbound direction.
Thinking
that's where the queuing starts.
Oh, and order through the passenger window? Yeah, I mean, if it's not crowded, maybe. So I'd like somebody to tell me something about that. Yay or nay?
If it's not required, it doesn't make sense.
To the best of my knowledge, I don't think there's anything in our zoning ordinance that requires a bypass lane. I think that's common practice.
Okay, everyone agree?
I
No
do.
bypass?
I do.
Okay. All right. Everyone agrees with the sidewalk. Everyone agrees with the pedestrian crossing through the drive-through. And everyone, I think, agrees that it's difficult pedestrian access route adjacent to the building as shown.
Are they required to do bike racks?
No. Sure.
Sure. Same answer. Everyone okay with bike racks?
Yeah, bike racks are a good idea.
Once a week.
Now it makes sense.
And then the size?
It's just supposed to be-
Boulevard.
What's that?
Is this in the Boulevard zone?
It's in the Boulevard Central District, however, it was rezoned out of the mixed-use districts. So what you're thinking may apply in a requirement for a bike rack in that aspect is covered under the zoning district and not by the Boulevard Central District, which is a geographical boundary for environmental impact statement.
So they're not required to have a bike rack?
Not required.
Still do it.
However, encouraged.
It wouldn't hurt anybody
Yes.
to do it.
Electrical vehicle station?
Not required, but also encouraged. So if it were in a mixed-use district and we were to require an EV station, it would only have to be EV-ready, which means they would have to demonstrate that they have conduit running prepared for the installation of an EV station in the future. So they don't necessarily have to install them, but they have to accommodate the service in order to have them just basically plopped into the ground.
Is this still Benderson?
Yes.
Okay. I'm thinking they have a tenant in mind already, right? But they're just not saying who it is?
Generally, their practice would be not to build a spec building, and based on the layout of the site, I would think this probably is going to be 2 restaurants.
2 restaurants?
I would think so. So one, obviously, this tenant is going to be with a drive-through. I would venture to bet that this is going to be a national restaurant national restaurant tenant that doesn't have a drive-through.
Yeah, 'cause I was thinking, what are they? I mean, they're dedicating a lot of resources to drive-through and also a lot of resources to parking. So is that, like you said, it's going to be 2 places? Okay.
I would think so. The only reason I would speculate that is because of the size of their grease interceptor. It's rather big for a retail tenant, so that would lead me to believe that they have 2 restaurants.
Okay, anything else on this one? Let's keep her moving. Hearing none, we're moving along. So this would be, what do you want to give this one? Approved, not approved, given that we don't know anything with the pedestrian? I would say probably denied.
Yeah.
You guys agree?
6,000, 6020 North Bailey? What we got going on there?
You will find out in 1 second.
Can't wait.
What's the address?
6,000, 6020 Bailey Avenue.
Yep, you got it. So this site is actually just to the east of the one that we just looked at, also owned by Benderson Development. And this is Amherst Development Park, which is, the warehousing Distribution Development that's the agglomeration of rectangular buildings. This is slated to become Benderson's headquarters. In order to do that, they are proposing 2 building additions that are occurring at the westernmost portion of the site. So you can see here they have given you an indication of.
Is this a good one right here?
That is the landscape plan, so yeah, that's probably the cleanest, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
So, this building here, and this proposed addition are for Benderson's corporate headquarters. And then this building here in the back is being retrofitted to be a Delta Sonic soap blending facility, which was previously for the site even further to the east, as you may remember from the 12 iterations of plans that we saw, which was supposed to be right in this back corner. That is now moving over here into this back building, and Benderson is retrofitting the front for their corporate headquarters. So what are the changes in here? Basically, the formation of more standardized parking. You can see in this aerial image this existing interior drive lane is really for distribution vehicles, loading docks, people that are facilitating warehousing distribution uses. So they're going to be adding a little bit more formal parking adjacent in between these two new uses. And they're also going to extend this parking field closer to Romney Road, which requires a license agreement from the town to encroach within our right-of-way. So
for your sake, more parking to the north and more parking to the east. This is also going to be bumped out. The sidewalk that's there now is going to be bumped out closer to the road.
yes.
And then some interior, once loading, now potentially parking slash, I don't know, a little more use.
And really the limit of work as to this site kind of ends here internally. This is all going to remain the same interior. So it's really just kind of the retrofitting of this parking with some new pedestrian accesses to a more formal office space and the expansion of the parking to the north.
Isn't there like a big ditch to the north?
That there's a ditch to the south, a swale. That ditch that you're referring to is on the north side of Romney Road, I believe. Chris would be better equipped to answer that.
There's a ditch here.
Yep.
And
then
then
there's
a ditch to the south. Let me,
Right here. You actually kind of
right there.
see it. You kind of see the dark green.
this here you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. That's existing store. Yeah, that's an existing ditch.
And then to the south of the Brown Road, there's also a ditch. You see that darker green along in there?
This here.
Yeah, that's a ditch too, isn't it?
Chris, can
Yeah,
you
there's
go?
a lot of I mean, it's not really traffic safety, but there's a lot of ditch tiling and underground drainage.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's standing water in there. I mean, there's herons who live there.
They're not going to be there much longer because they're going to cover it.
Well, actually, they moved to the Costco site, actually.
Paradise.
They're on the north side of the Costco site.
You'll also notice, just for some context, this sneaky northeast corner of the site with the realignment of Romney Road, that is under a minor site plan approval for change of the road. So that's something that Chris usually looks
I
at.
brought that today, if we did want to look at it.
This really is the only scope of work. It's mostly on the Boulevard Consumer Square parcel, and you can see it kind of. And this is all for the alignment with the proposed driveway across North Bailey for Costco.
So you mentioned you mentioned the soap blending warehouse moving
Yeah.
to this site. Tie this together here. The other site where we've kind of already looked at it, approved it, where the Costco and that was to go,
Yes.
is that building still in that site plan design and will come before us in the future for a different building to go there, or?
Undetermined.
So just for my own personal knowledge here, just because they don't build the building, they don't need to change that.
Correct.
They have a certain amount of time to build it.
Yes.
If they don't build it, then they can repropose, or they can change the whole site.
Yeah. That may become something different in the future, or they may build that for a different tenant,
Right.
with the same needs. So.
I'd like to see them add a sidewalk on the northern part.
This stretch here.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll be able to fit it in with all their parking spots, but
I mean, they're building their corporate office in the middle of their massive development, retail development, but yet providing no pedestrian access from their own office building to their own retail shopping plazas. So I would agree with Greg.
Just a
Need
general
sidewalks.
gripe with Benderson in general. They seem to like not think about pedestrians really at all.
Yeah, they did this one here, but nothing to the north. There's nothing to connect to. To your point, you want something all the way along Romney.
Yes.
If they're gonna encroach into the town's right away, it's a perfectly good ask.
Are they encroaching in the town's right away?
Yeah, so part of this plan set, Chris, if you scroll up, I think, there's an inset that shows.
Oh, wow.
Just a little bit.
Yep, just a little bit. You know, it's not a ton, but you can see here, this is,
They're putting those cars right up against the road. There's probably not even enough space there for a sidewalk.
so go up a little bit more. Keep going. There's an inset in the bottom left of one of these sheets.
Am I zoomed out enough?
I mean, it's good they're adding parking, but
There you go, right there. So this dark gray area is what they're requesting for a license agreement.
Oh, they don't have a width, do they? Oh, 6 foot. So you could put a 5-foot sidewalk right up against it. Be right along the road.
Better than nothing, in my opinion.
With a lot of traffic on that road. You like my favorite sidewalk on Youngs Road? That's not a sidewalk.
Curved
Yeah.
parking lot.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're gonna have to
The raised
go
path
through
is a
the
big
trouble of
path.
filling in that niche anyway.
yeah, the ditch is big.
It's hard work. Yeah, I agree. Ask for the sidewalk.
I mean, they're doing all the other work on Romney Road to turn it. They can just shift the whole road a little bit to the north to make room for a sidewalk.
Don't-
Go
can't-
back further on Romney.
Can't we-
Sidewalk.
Can't we give them Romney?
Yes, we can.
Can we give them Romney?
Good riddance.
I would say call your county legislature.
County. Romney's a town road.
That's a standard answer for anything that I want to plead the fifth on.
I wanted to give them Romney before.
Well, you can give them Romney.
I can give them whatever I want to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I have no say in the matter.
Okay, I've got sidewalk comment. Anything else on this one?
Sidewalk on Bailey too, right?
There's already one on
Because
Bailey.
Bailey's there.
They're relocating it.
This one's pretty straightforward when it comes
Yeah.
to traffic.
I remember we pushed for this last time they did a modification here. I remember Guy Marlette asked for this.
Yeah.
And now we're just gonna move it.
But they're
Well,
gonna
that
push
was
it
their problem.
forward, right? It
Yeah.
still goes in the site plan, because they're gonna put another row of parking in there, right?
Yeah, it's still, it gets relocated.
If they're relocating it, how does that affect the eventual possible widening of Bailey with all of those impacts?
Not anymore.
Hmm.
Eliminate the site.
I mean, they're not
Good,
encroaching on the
good
road
question.
there, are they?
Yeah.
They're only on Romney.
They are, that, I believe was the part of my first zoning board of appeals meeting when I got hired by the town, which was 3 years ago.
Is the
Well, we're
property
not-
the town line?
Yes, that is the parcel boundary.
And we're gonna give them,
No, not give,
we're gonna allow them to build in it.
Lease.
Say with a license.
license agreement.
So they're gonna pay a fee.
As part of their tax bill. But as we do that, that's gonna prevent us from ever being able to.
Well, there's probably gonna be language in the lease that allows us to reclaim it without a taking.
Yeah, generally license agreements aren't perpetual.
I'm not,
Because we currently own it.
So what?
No, my point, yeah, that's beyond us.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah,
I mean, is
And
it,
the sewer too, and maintenance.
that's not our say if the town allows them that licensing
I
agreement.
don't necessarily disagree, I
correct,
just.
that's up to the town attorney's office.
If
Do
they
the part
do
of
it,
us.
definitely sidewalk handling.
Can we put the comment in there that we have concern about future?
Yeah.
We have concern about encroaching on the right of way for future widening of Bailey. Can we just put that as a
Yes.
question concern within our
I
statement?
think it's a good idea.
Yeah, don't go too far.
Because they take, because they, we take that away, we give them the licensing agreement to do that, then you can't manage, you can't do North Bailey to widen it at any point in the future without them not meeting parking lot requirements. So put a parking lot on top of the warehouse.
Well, they may meet the parking requirements, but they may not feel it's sufficient to be able to park the number of people on site. Two different things.
And they need all that additional, like, outer parking, like, they need to make those changes to be compliant with parking?
So, can you go to the site plan, Chris? There should be a parking table.
I don't know where that is.
I would scroll up.
This plan set's a little bit of a mess.
That's a demo plan. Keep going down, that's a survey.
It's like, it's broken up.
Yeah.
Demo.
Right there.
Demo site, here we go.
Top left.
So you want a parking analysis, or parking?
Required 613, provided 688.
Yeah. So, just when you look at sites like this, because that's a legitimate question. Our parking requirements are meant to be based on an average, based on the use. Not every user under an umbrella of a use category requires the same parking or has the same trip demand. So Benderson may feel that based on the number of employees that they want located at the site, that our requirements are too low to meet their use. However, we can't require they provide more. They have to meet our minimums. So if they do that, they're code compliant, but they may feel that they need more to be able to sufficiently park the site.
But in theory, they could, with the amount of leeway they have, they could in theory drop the plan to put all the new parking on the right-hand side, leave that as is, and just put the new parking on the north part, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. We good on that one? D, we already covered. E, 1565, 1575, 1659 Niagara Falls Boulevard.
That's Boulevard Consumer Square. That's
Can we skip that one? Because we only have that in paper. That's not on the website, right?
No, that's a minor. That's the realignment of Romney.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes.
We can pull that out at the
end.
So G is dropped from the agenda. That was put on by mistake. So all we have to do is F digitally and then go back to E with paper.
Got it.
Which one was G, Chris?
G is 6569 Main Street.
That's a Gurdwara Center?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just in for a renewal of approval, so I don't think
it was
anything.
just you guys distributing the final set. And my clerk thought it was a review, so she put it on.
7470 Transit Road.
Yes,
Former Pizza Hut, right?
that is a former Pizza Hut, yes.
Become a Pizza Hut again?
Maybe. Although I thought Pizza Hut was only building drive-throughs, so maybe look elsewhere for that tenant. Yeah, this is another Benderson project. Former Pizza Hut site. Fairly simple. 7,000 square foot building, a rectangle.
I can't maybe I can rotate this. Yeah. Son of a.
Drunk.
Yep, you got it right there.
Is this the site plan?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
So
Demoing the existing.
demoing the existing building and reconstructing this one-story box. Transit Road is on the east side here. One driveway onto Transit, existing curb cut. that will come into a small parking field to serve the main entrance that's located fronting transit. We also have a curb cut on Tennyson that's existing that will continue up. And if you can follow my pointer onto Google Earth, that is going to continue up straight all the way to connect to this building here, which is a dental office, maybe.
Stiller Dental.
Yep. So that's being done at, at the very tippy top of the site through a reciprocal easement agreement. But otherwise, single row parking, refuse enclosure right off the main drive, so the truck can pull in, back out, and probably come out Tennyson.
So those folks on Tennyson can be quite vocal. Are they going to be upset that potentially more people from the north are going to have access to Tennyson to then go to Maine?
I mean, yeah, they certainly could. I don't think the amount of users on these two sites is going to feed into that, but I think physically they could, yeah.
Why is there that connection to the north?
Good question. I mean, my best guess would just be access management and,
additional parking.
Cross access off of a major roadway.
Is that Bert's Bikes? The other building there?
That is
Osmosis Smoke
Oasis Smoke Shop. You familiar?
But no, to the north, Bert's Bikes.
Bert's Bikes, okay, so you got Bert's Bikes, then you've got Stellar, so they're not connecting into they're connecting into Bert's Bikes?
No. They're connecting into Stellar. So it's the connection is right about here.
Right, and the white one is not connected into Bert's.
Correct. Actually, well, no, it's not. It could be here, but it's not.
So, and then this just terminates here. It's connected in the back here, it looks like. Well, that's weird.
Why you don't go back there?
So you may be thinking what the necessity is for this bank of parking, and who would ever use that. They need that to meet their required parking calcs.
Okay. What's this use again?
It's
Retail?
Two uses: retail, restaurant. This one I'm guessing one restaurant.
So,
can you zoom into the front of the building, Chris? This I don't know if I've ever seen used, but this is not. You see this dark area here? It's not called out with a detail. My best guess is that it's a detectable warning strip.
Oh, wow.
Little funky. I don't know why.
You don't need that.
But I can't find anywhere on the plans that calls out what this is, especially after this, you can see kind of shadowed in here is a line for a 6-inch upright curb.
Yeah, that's confusing. I mean, that could just be a flush mount.
Right.
But then what is by the hatching, by the two handicaps, the 6 foot, 6 foot, 6 foot, those are like their curb dimensions?
These are spacings for.
Oh, for the signage.
For the signage.
Okay.
I guess we'd want to go to the drainage plan or the grading plan to see if, top of curb and bottom of curb are the same. So this whole thing is flush.
Yep, right across. And these are bollards.
Yeah, these are.
So not something we see often.
No, it's
I don't think I've ever seen it, but.
It's confusing to those blind. You shouldn't.
Yeah, somebody who needs those.
Yeah, you need to. They're gonna think that that's either a place to cross or access to the accessible.
Stall.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hatching. So that I totally agree that that's got to go.
I don't know why. I don't know why that exists, but. Oh, and then a couple more things. If you could zoom out, Chris.
Grading plan, or I'll go back.
Yeah, whatever. It's easy. Sidewalks along Tennyson. Connection to the main entrance from the Tennyson Walk, and then a connection to the main entrance from the Transit Road Walk. So
You want them to start a new sidewalk along Tennyson?
Yeah, they have to. They're required to unless they ask for a waiver. Not up to you guys, but you certainly could say that you would not support one.
Chris is the one I've seen you have your little things and like, oh yeah, traffic safety board. I've seen like waivers be approved where we've never actually discussed it.
Yes.
Yes.
So like, do we not have that happen?
So it may behoove you to put in a review, even though I don't think they've asked for one, that you would not support one in the instance that they ask. But they might be,
Yeah,
they might
so
be premature,
I only grant them if there's like constructibility issues.
I know what you, I've seen
Yeah.
the ones and they're like random and there's.
They're like, it's like a huge ditch or, yeah, so I mean, the,
I'm not calling
the planner, yeah, the planners look at, we have different roles. The planners look at connectivity, engineering looks at constructibility. But you're, no, I wouldn't grant this one. All right, to answer your question.
And I also just quickly, this is a common theme, this parking stall and, you know, real close to a driveway entrance. I don't think it's that great. However, there's nothing that I can, all my department can do is recommend that it be removed to avoid potential future conflicts with vehicles
Yeah,
turning
but
into.
on this one, that's not going to be all that heavily used.
No, right.
I would totally agree if this was coming off of transit, but off a side street, I don't know.
Yeah. Also,
That's the spot you wouldn't park in. Park there last.
yeah. The other thing that you may want to look at is this is a ramp down to the asphalt. There's no easy way
Right here,
without
you see?
crossing all this asphalt from, if you were going to park back here or even back here, to easily get yourself to the front of the building. So whether that be a public walk along Tennyson or another second walk that is along the building line, there's not an easy way if you park back here. I mean, you really got to traverse some.
Yeah, just have to look at the landscaping plan. I'm going to guess it's all.
This is all a grass panel out front along Tennyson, so they have more than enough room to accommodate.
You could do one here, sure.
And then I would
Or-
say,
Or shift the, if you shift the building down, then
so
it's.
here's some food for thought. This right here is required to have 3 feet of landscaping along this building foundation, so they either need to move the building 2 feet south or figure out some way to accommodate this landscaping.
It's landscape still.
No, it has to be planted. And it also has to be a minimum width of 3 feet.
She's just saying it says stone.
But it's got the word landscape in it, so
Yeah.
that makes it true.
What are those
All right.
round things there? Those, what are they saying?
Is that about these?
Yeah, those things. The
Shrubs.
Shrubs?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I'm just get.
That's the shrub variety. There's probably some legend that says what it is.
There is. There's a plant list on this page. These are all 10-foot junipers. These are crab apples.
Okay.
And anything you see that is a larger symbol is a large deciduous shade tree.
Can we ask for bike racks?
Sure. Your HM is a hydrangea. It's called the Let's Dance Can Do Big Leaf Hydrangea.
All right, not traffic safety related.
If you've ever
Let's
heard
move
of
on.
that species before.
Let's.
I own Bert's bikes.
The Let's Dance Can Do Hydrangea.
That's my favorite variety.
All right, so
That's
bike
the
rack.
household one.
I got bike rack, pedestrian access route to parking in the rear, the ADA detectable warning grid to get rid of, sidewalk to Tennyson, sidewalk along Tennyson. And
Bike racks have a
Can
sidewalk.
we make sure that the sidewalk on Tennyson connects to the existing one?
well, yeah,
Just make a full connection to the sidewalk.
Probably have to be chamfered, right, Chris? Cross.
not a fillet,
Huh?
not a fillet. Yeah, I'd have to look at the right of way. Yeah, chamfer.
Or maybe we can get one of those fancy curved ones.
Sure. All right, anything else on this one? Okay, we're gonna look at Romney Road, and then we're out of here.
It's a good way of looking at these on the screen.
What's that?
It's a good way of looking at these on the screen.
So, yeah, these are all of our major site plans. The only thing we don't require digital files for is minors, just because we do those administratively.
But they probably have them anyway.
Oh, yeah, they definitely do.
Working overtime tonight. Come on, Eric, speed things up.
He's really getting it.
So this is really the Costco. They did not include the intersection plan as part of their site development. It's a separate plan set. So we're looking at Romney, realignment, new signal. You guys urged them to do roundabouts. It was not approved that way. And also a single intersection specified.
They're gonna do that sidewalk like 7 times.
So this is the northern one. Tom, I did not check to see if
Yeah, this isn't gonna be subject to this approval anyway, so.
Okay. So I guess we're looking at.
Really, it's just this.
Yes. Yes.
Another question I asked them, but it's not.
I don't know, you're on a roll.
Can we get bike racks?
Bike racks? National Citizen.
Chris has already seen.
Gotta wear those plans out, you turn them so much.
I guess we'll look at the grading plan. Here they are, but why don't we show them the grading plan? Not really sure. So, one of my comments is, kind of goes back to, I think it was Craig's comment. Is this gonna be suited for the widening of Bailey in the future? They're gonna have to prove to me that these are good locations, that they won't need to be moved after we take acceptance of them. I would like to push them out further. Yes. These are mast arms, that's what we're going with in terms of town standard, similar to TOTs, they're a lot easier. Let's go on Morley, trying to get away from span. We'll be out there with BioVision, leak detection.
Headheads?
Don't know.
We want headheads.
I don't see them.
Hopefully on the mast.
These are the set signal plans. Once you guys continue, we'll take a look.
Yeah, they might be on the. But if.
On the post.
But if they're on the post and we move the post back, the headheads need to be within, I think, 10 feet of the pedestrian crossing.
So.
Yeah,
So they're on there.
But if we ask them to move the poles back, then they're gonna have to figure out, they're gonna have to make them pedestrian. Yeah.
Parking spots in the other building, they can really widen the road.
It would be so much easier if they just put it
So we're not too fond of this type of ramp. We normally like the ramps that are double. Yes. So that's going to be one of my comments. I don't know if they can fit it in every location, especially the rounding, but we're going to ask for it.
Seems like an antiquated way of doing EDA.
And this is exactly, don't look at this for sight. That's just a signal pattern. There's a whole lot of.
Here they have two.
Yeah, that's why this is more graphical than fixing.
But that's where they're putting the crosswalk, you don't really have.
You can always push this back. But you can push this back, have it come this way, this way.
So you can push, why is this one so tight, and this one's so wide?
Those are existing. Same with these two ramps are existing.
Yeah,
All
but
they're
they're-
doing is adding the potential warning.
This is all new development.
You can do anything you want to this intersection. Shot, so if you want a wider radius.
Well, I guess I don't understand why this radius is so tight and this radius is so wide.
You have to ask the people who designed it. If there's any reasons. Well, it's not radius. You're going to build it up from 90 to
Yeah, but the truck, the truck route is over there.
They don't have to have access to this. Yeah, truck turning.
I mean, yeah, they did have the truck like outlines on one of these things, but that totally flies in the face of like the fact that the trucks are supposed to be entering over there anyway.
Yeah, but they have to accommodate whatever intersection.
This guy making the right.
And this one's got to swing out a little bit more.
So he's crossing into that.
Oh, I know what it is. They got their parking here. They use their parking, so they can't cut this one, so they're allowing this not to.
If they make that bigger than this, won't impact that turn lane or whatever lane.
Just point out the efficiency and the nature of that.
Can we have them ask him for LS instead of LF, instead of S or L?
Yep. Type LS.
And then is this Best Buy here?
Yes, right.
Can we ask them for some sort of like a
Yeah.
crosswalk here, like that to like beacon it?
Probably the already sidewalk here, right?
I think it's just that's basically all concrete.
Sure. And there's the crosswalk.
Yes.
I don't have to dissect Chris's scribbles.
Yeah, tomorrow morning. It's interesting. Okay. I mean, I assume that they're
So,
stacking.
yeah,
Is
put
it
your
okay?
Astor right there. Probably not possible. Because you got a drainage ditch there, a bunch of other.
Hydraulic.
Yes.
There's
Bigger room.
Let's ask him for it. Ask for it. Is this is the Southernmore intersection?
This is the northern. It's Best Buy.
Oh, this is the Best Buy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We haven't gotten to the other yet.
So which one? The other one, the other one's the Romney one?
We're gonna do that next. Any more comments on this one?
Wait, so there are 3 lights instead of 2 now? There's only 2?
So Best Buy and Romney.
So, on that, you're set back from the sidewalk over there.
Okay. Make one long crosswalk.
Go back over. So if you put the sidewalk here,
not really, this is a planting bed. So really, the crops are really this, that you're looking at.
I'm just gonna ask for it. See what
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. Here is Rob. Here is Rob. Yeah. So right here is your free setback. Not that, not that, not that, especially not this one. So yeah, we got. Yeah, something kind of brand that doesn't line up. Oh, there it is. Not big fan.
Oh, this one should come back
Yeah,
together.
exactly. Yeah, I got it.
This one is.
They're gonna have to just probably give me, you know, like the widening of this, to show me that it works.
Because you envision them having to widen, or the town having to widen North Bailey.
Yeah, but they're gonna say you're very close to the best.
Right. But there's no room there. There's no room there. Especially with the this parking lot.
Which one's room now? Which one's first? I'm gonna take some doing, but maybe that'll over.
Lots of pipe.
Yes.
Does widening really come first, or does crossing come first, or does Robbins intersections come first?
Widening is actually. I can tell you widening's at the end of that list.
Widening at the end of the list, huh?
Yes.
No, I know. No.
Bikers. Alright, yeah.
All over.
Every word of the day. Bike racks.
I have no idea if that's long enough. Maybe I'll just, I'll ask her.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, is this like a part where you're not supposed to be in? I feel like you're just gonna have a bunch of cars
Yeah.
lining up there.
Yeah.
Another thing you should realize is this white line right here is the edge of pavement line. Look on the aerial, and these are right now 11.5-foot lanes. They're widening to 13 something. So I didn't really understand why they're widening. So are we okay with the elimination of the pond line? But the problem is, goes back to what Dan said, there's fairly decent sized ditches right here. So we're right up against it. Then somebody told me that they did propose a guide rail, it's more of a wood guardrail. So we're gonna be questioning that. And we may ask for an actual guide rail. I don't know what it is. So
I
our.
think there's wood, I think this is existing wood fiber right
But now that this is gonna be so close without the edge pavement, do we want some sort of barrier?
Would makes it look nautical with the water.
How about they just put in a culvert ditch straight and cover the building, so we can find where we were in the future.
Stormwater storage. Big pipe.
I think just, I mean, they got, there's requirements for guide rail.
Yes.
So have them examine how, if they're widening the pavement, now have you created a need for guide rail?
The guide rail doesn't work good next to ditches.
To do long posts or something.
They're
Yeah.
probably proposing wood guide rails as it's used
Why? Just is, huh?
Right.
Must have been cheap at the time.
Yeah, there's guardrail criteria, barrier criteria, and one of them is rollover, slope embankment. And they'll have to. All right. Anything else? That's it for me.
Motion to adjourn?
Okay, I'll make it.
Yes,
Second.
please.
Kevin? All in favor? Aye. See you in 2024.
If I get reappointed.